Chapter 21. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little? Schwa.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. P.S. N. Please add and recommend. Yen. Second brother, you're back. Zhong Luochen glanced at his sister and didn't say anything, but asked directly, what's the specific situation? The third miss of the Zhong family didn't look good. The doctor said that it'll happen in 2 or 3 days. Grandfather's mind is in a daze now. He can't recognize people. Zhong Luochen nodded, pushing the door and entering. In the luxurious suite, a group of people surrounded the bed anxiously. There were also 2 doctors and 3 nurses who were paying close attention to the heart rate monitor that had been transported here. Luochen, you're finally back. Another square-faced, middle-aged man by the bed called out at this time. Zhong Luochen hurriedly nodded and walked inside. The Zhong clan was very big, but there weren't many people who could be considered as direct descendants. Old Zhong only had 1 son and 1 daughter in his life. Zhong Luochen's father contracted a strange disease in his early years, and since then, he couldn't take care of himself. Although there were no major problems, he could only sit in a wheelchair and couldn't even speak fluently. As for Zhong Luochen's aunt, she died in childbirth. The one who just greeted him was Zhong Luochen's aunt's husband, Wang Guoli. Luochen, I'm afraid that your grandfather. You'd better stay here for these 2 days. Zhong Luochen's mother sighed. Zhong Luochen suddenly said, Mother, get out of the way first. The 2 doctors over there, prepare that as soon as possible. I want to transfer my grandfather to another place. It was supposed to be a sad and bleak time, but Zhong Luochen was very decisive. The 3rd generation of the Zhong family had 3 heroes, and the bearing that Zhong Luochen showed was shocking everyone. Almost, they didn't react from such words. Luochen, are you crazy? At this time, another young man came from behind, the 3rd generation of the Zhong family's young master, Zhong Luoyun. He quickly walked forward. The doctor said that grandfather is about to die, so don't make trouble at this time. Do you want to see grandfather endure inhuman pain in his last moments? Luochen? Zhong Luochen's mother looked at her son with confusion. Zhong Luochen took a deep breath and said, Listen, I don't have much time to explain. But if you all want to save your grandfather's life, then do as I say. Don't hesitate at all. Zhong Luoyun frowned and said, All the top doctors in the country have already seen him. What other methods do you have? In short, it's a way to survive. Zhong Luochen shook his head and turned around to look at the doctors. What are you guys still standing there for? I want you to get ready immediately. All of you stop. Zhong Luoyun was instantly enraged as he grabbed his younger brother's arm. Luochen, I don't know what you're planning to do, but if you don't make yourself clear, then don't even think of leaving this place. These past few days have truly been too sensitive, so I absolutely won't let you leave with grandfather by yourself. Little sister, which side are you on? The Zhong family's 3rd miss, who was suddenly asked, frowned. I agree with big brother, but I also want to hear second brother's explanation. If there is really a way to treat him, I will be the first to support it. Second brother, moving grandpa is not a child's play. Then, no matter what difficulties you have to let all the elders here understand. How to say it? Tell them about the club? That kind of talk in the middle of the night. It was impossible to say, and not many people would believe it. If you're worried about what I'll do in the middle, you can follow me. Zhong Luochen quickly said, Listen, staying here is waiting for death, but if you listen to my arrangements, there's a chance of survival. Instead of staying here until the end, why not give it a try? In short, if you don't make yourself clear, I will never agree. Zhong Luoyun snorted coldly. It's not up to you to make decisions in the Zhong family. Zhong Luochen bit his lip. Indeed, it was not up to him to make decisions here. Now it could be said that the situation was like a group of dragons without a leader, so it was difficult for anyone to suppress anyone. Wait a minute. At this time, An old man who had been silently accompanying the bed suddenly opened his mouth. When the old man opened his mouth, almost everyone looked at him. The old man's surname was not Zhong, but his status in the Zhong family was extraordinary, because this old man had followed old Master Zhong all his life. It could be said that half of the Zhong family's foundation was due to this old man's contribution. The old man had no children and lived a lonely life, but old Master Zhong treated him like a brother. He even said that as long as he was alive, there would be a day for the old man. He even made the third generation of the Zhong family formally sign a contract and acknowledge them as his godgrandson. Grandfather Luo. Zhong Luoqin's eyes lit up as he looked at the old man. Luoqin, have you seen that person? Luoqin asked. Did you see that person? Zhong Luoqin nodded. The old man surnamed Luo's eyes suddenly lit up, as if the dark clouds on his face were swept away. He said with full energy, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and move the old master. If anyone is slow, I'll make him unable to breathe for the rest of his life." Unexpectedly, this old man who had an extraordinary status in the Zhong family directly nodded his head in agreement. Zhong Luoyun and the Zhong family's third young lady's expression changed at the same time. Did Zhong Luoqin do something to gain Grandfather Luo's trust? Luoqiu nodded to Zhang Qingrui, who was inside the car window, and said thank you. He then got off the car outside the auction venue. Zhang Qingrui originally wanted to directly bring him in, but Luoqiu felt that this would attract the attention of others. He felt that it was too troublesome, so he directly refused. After the pleasantries, Zhang Qingrui took the first step into the car and entered the venue's underground parking lot. Luoqiu took Yu Yi and followed the proper route through the entrance inspection. The security here is really lax. In the passage, Yu Yi said indifferently, "Master, if you really want that jade pendant, Yu Yi can easily get it. Anyway, this place is far inferior to the Palace of 10,000 Treasures in France." Luoqiu looked around, but no one paid attention to Yu Ye's words. It wasn't that he didn't believe Yu Ye's words, but because he believed it too much, so he seriously denied it. "I know you've been to the Louvre, but Zhang Qingrui is my classmate in name, so I don't want to cause any trouble for her." Luoqiu shook his head. "In the end, I'm just interested in it, but I don't mean to take the other jade pendant. Besides, if it wasn't judged as the transaction fee, it couldn't be offered as a sacrifice. Even if the other jade tablet was in his hands, and even if they might really be related to each other, they were originally a pair, but they had already been separated into two different concepts. Unless Luoqiu was willing to put his jade pendant into the warehouse, then his jade pendant could be released from the concept of transaction fee. "I understand." Yu Yi smiled. "Then, if I get it through the normal route, it's fine, right?" "Normal route?" Luoqiu was stunned and shook his head. "I know the club has a huge amount of wealth all over the world, but the brochure clearly states that the wealth can only be used as goods in the transactions of customers. Even I can't use it privately, right?" Chapter 22. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. At this moment, an old man with a ruddy complexion and white hair walked into the auction hall accompanied by a young man. The old man's face was ruddy as he walked briskly. His physique was more robust than most of the young people in society. The young man walked behind the old man and looked around, as if he was very curious about this place. "Jean, don't bother yourself with these worldly things," the old man said indifferently. The young man immediately lowered his head and withdrew his gaze with a face of reverence. However, he had followed the old man for a long time and the two had a deep relationship. Therefore, he quickly said with a smile, "Master, after we get the High Jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra token, if it's still early, can I walk around?" The old man suddenly glared at the young man, scaring the young man so much that his heart jumped. The old man said, "Bad disciple, how many times have I told you that you can't make a big deal out of things? There are so many demons and monsters in the world. That jade token is of great importance. If it's leaked out. Before he finished speaking, the young man continued with a serious face. If it's leaked out, it's bound to attract the covetous eyes of those demons and demons. There will be a reign of terror in the Jianghu, and we won't be able to cultivate peacefully. Master, am I right? Noisy. The old man snorted. From now on, shut your mouth and silently recite the Inner Heart Sutra 100 times. The young man opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. However, he really didn't dare to disobey his master's orders. He could only follow with his head lowered and silently recite the Inner Heart Sutra that he had long been tired of reciting. At this moment, a man in his 30s wearing old black-rimmed glasses suddenly fell to the ground in front of the old man, who was in a state of panic. The old man's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. He supported the man with vigorous movements, but saw that the man's eyes were tightly shut, his face was pale, and his head was covered in cold sweat. The old man frowned and pressed his palm on the man's back. At the same time, he pressed hard on the man's philtrum. The man quickly woke up. What happened to me? Your inner breath suddenly became chaotic, and then your essence, chi, and spirit went out of control. If it weren't for me, you would at least be seriously ill. The old man had already stood up. The man did indeed feel a warm current flowing into his body, and the splitting headache he felt was alleviated. He hurriedly expressed his thanks. Many thanks, old mister. Thank you, sir. After the man finished speaking, he hurriedly walked into the auction house. What kind of person is this? After saving him, he didn't even say a few words and left? The young man who couldn't stand the sight of this said rather indignantly. The old man said indifferently, Have you finished reciting the Heart Sutra? No. I'll read it right now. The young man quickly shut his mouth. The old man acted as if nothing had happened and slowly walked into the field. Miss, the 150,000 yuan deposit has been successfully seized. If you don't buy anything in this auction, we will refund you in full. This is your plate number, please keep it well. In addition, this is one of the original copies of the auction guarantee that you signed. Please keep it well. Also, this is my card. If there's anything, Miss can look for me at any time. Yu Yi nodded. Her expression was indifferent as she took the receipt and documents from this fellow who was said to be the auction house manager. However, she left the card behind and turned to leave. A young female receptionist who accompanied the work lowered her head and secretly laughed. She thought to herself that this woman was unbelievably beautiful. If one didn't specialize in fashion, they wouldn't be able to tell that the clothes she was wearing were new clothes from a well-known international brand that had just been released for the spring-summer fashion season. Not to mention other things, just that simple satchel was enough for the manager's labor for half a year. Why would she take a fancy to a greasy and powdered pig head like you? It was just that she didn't know who that young man who was waiting not far away was. He was able to make this icy woman reveal a graceful and moving smile. He didn't look like the young master of a rich family. Could it be that he was being kept as a gigolo? She didn't want to either. The female receptionist's imagination ran wild. The fat manager who had been refused the door slapped the table hard at this time. Little Wang, I'll leave for a while. You take care of the work here. Don't make trouble. Yes, manager. Little Chen responded hurriedly. However, when the manager turned around, he rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, I heard that Gu Yuzhai also sent a great beauty this time. Judging from his dead face, he probably wants to get close to her. But he's just a pighead. However, Little Chen didn't pay much attention to what he was made of. His white skin was painted with thick foundation, and he greeted people with a smile. Yu Yi had already walked to Luoqiu, who was waiting for her. She asked softly, What are you looking at? Oh, I just saw an interesting scene. Luoqiu smiled. He told her that he just saw an old man help a man and save the man. I don't know what happened. The man was very nervous all the time. But is that old man an old Chinese medicine doctor? Is he very good at massaging? Maybe it's a skill called qi passed down from the ancient East, Yu Yi said softly. Luochio was going to ask if qigong really existed in this world. But thinking about the existence of the club and the butterfly monster and mantis monster, it didn't seem to be a big deal. So he changed his question. Are there many people who know qigong? It's qi. Yu Yi corrected. To be exact, it's qi raising and qi controlling. It's different from the qigong passed down by the people. As for whether there are many or not, it's hard to say. But I once heard from an Eastern Taoist cultivator who came to the club that the current Taoist cultivators are nothing compared to the past. There are probably only a few hundred of them left. Many inheritances have been lost in the change of history. Luochio smiled. It's probably the same as the traditional craftsmanship that has been lost. Master, it's about to start. Let's go in. Yu Yi reminded him. Luochio looked at the time and said, Okay. By the way, I heard that there's a deposit. How much is it? Yu Yi smiled. Not much. It's not even enough to buy a spoonful of caviar that you usually eat. Really? Luochio nodded. He didn't have much idea. Caviar was commonly used in high-end restaurants, but it was also sold in general packaging on the market. To be honest, Luochio didn't know much about it, so he only had a concept. The deposit seemed to be quite humane. Luochio reached into his pocket and touched the white jade token that he carried with him. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he found that it seemed to heat up when he entered the auction house. He wanted to take it out and have a good look, but he felt uncomfortable at this time. He turned his head and found that someone was staring at him. If he remembered correctly, it was the man who was just rescued by the old man. Yen PS1. My stomach has been upset these 2 days. I went to the hospital for an infusion. Acute gastroenteritis. It's probably because I ate too many dumplings these days. So I'm sorry for the lack of updates. PS2. But the recommendation tickets are also increasing. It's good to be honest. I feel that these recommendation tickets are like dumplings. Even if my stomach is upset, I can still eat them. Chapter 23. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. But when Luochio turned his head, he immediately walked away in a hurry. Yu Yi, who saw this scene, frowned and walked past Luochio. She intended to follow him, but Luochio reached out and pulled her arm. No, he doesn't mean any harm. Luochio seemed to find it hard to accept such a statement. He thought and said, Recently, I always feel that my feeling in this aspect is getting more and more acute. Yu Yi just said softly, If as the owner of the club, you can't see through people's hearts, then it doesn't make sense. Luochio was stunned subconsciously, knowing that it was probably one of the wonderful abilities given to him by the club. He didn't feel anything bad about seeing through people's hearts, but he didn't feel anything good about it either. Vaguely, Luochio felt that this was not something to be happy about. Luochio shook his head. Let's take a seat. It's written in the catalog that the jade plate should be the last few items to be auctioned. But it's also my first time to come to this kind of place. It's actually good to broaden my knowledge. He turned and smiled curiously. I often hear that buyers spend a lot of money and fight with each other at the auction. I don't know if I can see it carefully today. In fact, these two people were a very strange combination. The woman was like a dreamlike person in a painting, as if she had magical power and could capture people's souls. But the man was easy to see. Although he looked delicate and pretty, there were too many delicate and pretty people. At this time, walking with the woman, he looked extraordinarily ordinary. But the man walked in front and the dreamlike woman followed unhurriedly. The man and woman finally found a corner to sit down, as if they didn't want to be disturbed. It was human nature to love beauty. Because the beautiful Yu Yi attracted most people's attention, few people noticed the old man with white hair and the young man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes beside the old man. Master, I didn't expect there to be such a refined woman. The young man looked at her with some infatuation. However, the old man suddenly opened his eyes, and there seemed to be a flash of light in his eyes. He stretched out his hand and quickly formed a hand seal in front of his chest. Then, he quickly tapped between the young man's eyebrows and shouted, "Ja! Master, I." At this time, the young man suddenly had a look of panic. The old man frowned and said, "Don't talk, recite the Heart Sutra silently, guard the bright platform tightly, clear away all your distracting thoughts. Don't let this pink skull ruin your Tao heart." The young man did not dare to make any mistakes and quickly closed his eyes. The old man's eyes were like torches. At this moment, he glanced at the young man and looked at the corner with a serious expression. "What a charming technique! Who is this woman? His essence, chi, and spirit are all gone, like a wandering ghost, but he's not a demon. Hopefully, it wasn't one of those unorthodox sections." The old man thought of many things in an instant. He had come here this time to obtain something. That thing was rumored to have been lost for hundreds of years. This time, the old man accidentally discovered it. However, he could not be sure that no one else came here with the same purpose. The old man took a deep breath and formed a hand seal again. Then, he pinched his fingers into a sword sign and quickly wiped his eyes. He opened his eyes again and looked at the corner. This time, he suddenly met the woman's eyes. The sapphire blue eyes were as deep as the ocean. The moment they made contact, the old man's spirit seemed to have been swallowed into a huge whirlpool. His face turned pale and his expression was horrified. He could only bite the tip of his tongue and barely pull himself out of the whirlpool. However, he was already sweating and frightened. His breath was chaotic, as if he was seriously ill. The old man quickly calmed down and murmured, using the superior Taoist martial arts to transmit his voice, "I'm Yang Taizi. May I know who you are? Monks from the East? Put away your poor vigilance, don't spoil my master's mood, or I'll dig up your mountain, humph." The woman's humph was like a great bell above the ninth heaven. It directly shook Yang Taizi's mind and made him uneasy. He almost vomited a fishy smell. If not for the solid foundation of the pure yang skill that he had cultivated for 60 or 70 years, he would have been in danger of being possessed by the devil. However, that terrifying spirit had disappeared without a trace. Yang Taizi's face became worse. He slowly adjusted his breath while thinking, when did such a powerful person come here? What's more, she sounded like a servant. The old man took a deep breath and took out his phone. He opened the Penguin app and logged in to his QQ account. His fingers moved like lightning as he began to use the handwriting input method to write, "Fellow Taoists, have you ever heard of a woman who is as beautiful as a fairy, with blue eyes and black hair? Her spirit is abnormally strong, and her charm technique is extremely sharp? Urgent, waiting online. She'll come back in the evening. Don't cook." Luochio also replied to Ren Xiling's message for the nth time. He raised his head and asked in confusion, "Yu Yi, did you say anything just now? I think I heard some strange sounds, but I didn't hear it clearly." "Well, I didn't say anything." Yu Yi smiled slightly. "Really?" Luochio nodded. At this time, the auctioneer was already on the stage, speaking with a microphone. "Thank you for coming. It's my honor to be the auctioneer of this auction." After the lengthy speech, it was time for the first item to be auctioned. Luochio glanced at the price. The starting price was 30,000 yuan. He couldn't help mocking himself. It seems that the starting price of millions or tens of millions is really not easy to see. I heard that in some foreign high-end auctions, there would be transactions of more than 100 million yuan. When my shuttle ability is stronger, I'll take some time to have a look. Luochio was quite interested, listening to the auctioneer's tireless introduction of each item. At this moment, he suddenly had an idea. It's time for me to learn some knowledge in this field. The club conveniently provided him with the ability to identify items, but judging from the white jade plate, the identification was not for Annika. If he was asked to sacrifice his life in exchange for information, he would really be cheated to death. Should I ask Zhang Qingrui to recommend some books suitable for beginners? Since we are classmates, it shouldn't be a problem, right? As he continued to think and watch, it was finally time for the purpose of his visit to appear. The projection on the stage showed several photos taken from different angles of the white jade plate, and at the same time, the auctioneer began to speak enthusiastically. The next item is the 27th item provided by Gu Yuzhai. I believe that all of you have already known some information about this jade plate. Everyone, please look at the back of the jade plate. We can faintly see the two characters Zgang, engraved in the seal script. The mood of the scene seemed to be rising, the magnesium light shone on the white jade plate, and some guests started to take photos without hesitation. The auctioneer smiled. I believe that all of you are familiar with this inscription. Now, I can tell you with certainty that this white jade plate indeed came from the jade maker of the Ming dynasty. The origin of this white jade plate is unknown, but according to the magazine attached to the jade plate, it can be guaranteed to be 500 years old. After showing the certificate of age and the material of the jade plate, the auctioneer immediately banged the mallet. The starting price of this white jade plate is 550,000 yuan, each increment is 10,000 yuan. 550,000 yuan going once. Someone has raised her card. It's Miss A66 over there. Looking at Yu Yi elegantly raising the number plate in her hand, Luoqiu just looked at it without saying anything. His bank card was almost all the New Year's money, red packets, and pocket money over the years. Although the club was very rich, so rich that Luoqiu was stunned when he saw the circle to the left of the decimal point for a while. He couldn't use that wealth, so he could only look at it and sigh. Therefore, he still only had the money in his bank card, which was more than 10,000 yuan at most. Yu Yi, could it be that you are actually a rich woman? Yu Yi still had that smile that Luoqiu couldn't grasp. What's Yu Ye's is naturally master's. Luoqiu was stunned and said in astonishment, probably most men would like to hear this sentence, right? But he shook his head and continued. Since it's already sold, then if possible, try to buy it back. Luoqiu wasn't a hesitant person. Since this was a normal way to get it, then it wasn't a bad idea to buy it back directly. He didn't think it was a problem to use Yu Ye's money. Yu Yi had lived for more than 300 years and had experienced the changes of time. With the existence of the club behind her, it wasn't hard to imagine that she could accumulate some extraordinary wealth. It was the same reason. As long as he had this thought, he could also accumulate a huge amount of wealth in the future. Therefore, if the white jade token was bought by someone else, it would be more troublesome. Luoqiu was inherently afraid of trouble. 560,000 yuan. A 45 bid 560,000 yuan. Is there anyone higher than 560,000 yuan? 560,000 yuan going once. 570,000 yuan. A 66 bid 570,000 yuan. Anyone else? Anyone else? 580,000 yuan. A 51 bid 580,000 yuan going once. Seeing the auctioneer shouting to his heart's content, Yu Yi seemed to be impatient. She directly stood up and said in a clear voice, "No need to bother, 1 million yuan." This number was actually nothing in the eyes of the truly rich. But at this moment, the moment this dreamlike woman stood up, almost all the eyes in the hall were drawn to her. The men's eyes couldn't move away from this beautiful figure. As for the women, for the first time, they didn't feel disdain in their hearts. They secretly thought that this was a kind of beauty that made people feel ashamed of their own inferiority. On the other side, the old man in the corner wanted to raise the number plate in his hand several times, but as if a mountain was pressing down on him, he was stunned and broke out in cold sweat. At the same time, he was even more shocked in his heart. The old man knew that the charm emitted from this woman's body had captivated everyone except the auctioneer, who wasn't affected at all. This skill was really controlled to the pinnacle of perfection. Not only that, he was also constantly under that kind of huge mental pressure, and his Tao heart was on the verge of collapse. 1,000,000 yuan going thrice. Sold. This white jade Z-gang token belongs to this lady from A66. The hammer was hammered down. But at this moment, a figure suddenly rushed out of the hall. He rushed up to the stage, reached out and grabbed the white jade token in his hand, and then ran to the side of the emergency exit. At this moment, the security guards seemed to have panicked. They held their batons and quickly chased after him. Luoqiu frowned. He saw that Yu Yi was angry. Chapter 24. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The auction was forced to stop on the spot, and a group of people stayed at the scene to wait for news. While he was thinking, a worker came to Luoqiu's side. Accompanied by him, Luoqiu and Yu Yi came to the side door of the venue, and found that there were already several people waiting there. Luoqiu was familiar with Zhang Qingrui, a fat man in his early 30s, and a woman in her 50s. Luoqiu, this is Miss Dong, the host of the auction, and this is Manager Han, who is in charge of the scene. Zhang Qingrui quickly explained, I'm sorry, your friend's item was stolen halfway. In any case, we will get it back as soon as possible. That is to say, you haven't found it yet? Luoqiu asked after a moment of silence. The woman surnamed Dong looked at Luoqiu from head to toe. They had been watching the auction through the backstage video. The first person who bid a high price for the jade plate left a deep impression on them. Zhang Qingrui seemed to know the other party, so she had some feelings for him. The other party bid for the item, but it was stolen, so she felt sorry for him. Therefore, Ms. Dong had to say kindly, Mr. Luo, please don't worry. We have called the police, the thief can't escape. Luoqiu was stunned, and said without thinking, Don't tell me he walked out of the venue? Zhang Qingrui felt embarrassed. I'm afraid that guy has a plan. We found a fire passage, and the lock of the door was broken. Then someone saw the thief leave on a motorcycle from the east wing, so he must have prepared in advance. Luoqiu shook his head. If he was in his own city, he could probably go to the man's side with a thought, but he was not so flexible in a city. He didn't have a good idea at the moment. Besides, he didn't lose anything. Although the bidding was successful, he hadn't paid yet. I don't care what method you use, we will leave by plane tonight. You'd better give me an explanation before the evening. Yu Yi suddenly said indifferently, It's your fault that the security here was lax. We like that jade tablet, so we want to buy it. There's a saying in the East that goes, No amount of money can buy a good heart. This isn't something that can be solved with just compensation. We understand. Manager Han quickly said with an apologetic smile. Even if you are in a hurry to leave tonight, our treasure auction house will not let this go unresolved. Once we can find the jade token, we will deliver it to you no matter what method we use. Ms. Dong and Qingrui Zhang both thought to themselves, This woman has such a strong aura that makes people unable to raise their heads. This was not something that any rich family's daughter could do. Zhang Qingrui couldn't help but look at Luoqiu with a troubled expression. Luoqiu could only turn to Yu Yi and say, Since the item has been taken away, there's nothing we can do. We're not interested in the rest. Well, Zhang Qingrui, you should have my phone number. If there's any news here, just let me know. Yu Yi, there's still some time, let's go somewhere else to have a look. Do you want to come here again? The club's servant girl nodded obediently to Luoqiu, but when she looked at Zhang Qingrui and the other two, her eyes were as sharp as the Siberian wind. Seeing the two walking towards the exit, Ms. Dong sighed subconsciously. Qingrui, who is this girl? I've seen a lot of powerful women in my life, but I've never seen one like this. I don't even dare to take a deep breath. Zhang Qingrui smiled bitterly, Auntie Dong, to be honest, I'm also confused. I only know that she's Luochio's friend. She should be his girlfriend. Then, that guy? Auntie Dong asked curiously. Zhang Qingrui didn't want to say more. He's my classmate. Although we're classmates, we're not close. Auntie Dong nodded. She was smart enough to know that Zhang Qingrui was being perfunctory. But this made her more curious about the identity of this young man and woman. Auntie Dong shook her head. Let's find the lost item first. I, Dong Minghua, am not a woman who will be bullied. Humph. Luochio called a taxi with the app. While waiting outside the venue, Yu Yi said softly, Master, I didn't do my job well. I'm sorry. Luochio gave a start. It's nothing. After all, not everyone can foresee this happening. Besides, there are so many surveillance cameras here, that guy can't escape. Anyway, the deposit is returned to you, so we didn't lose anything. But if it wasn't for that guy, the jade plate would be yours now. Luochio said happily, but isn't it more interesting now? Why did that guy take the jade plate? Does he know something about the jade plate that no one else knows? This is much more valuable than simply getting the jade plate. The taxi driver had started to stop. Luochio smiled. Let's go, I probably know which direction that guy escaped to. Yu Yi opened her mouth confusedly. Luochio took out the jade plate in his hand. This thing has been hot since just now. When I touched it, I felt something. He walked towards the taxi, muttering, maybe I don't need to reduce my lifespan to know what the jade plate is, in a remote cargo hold. The man wearing black glasses was holding a white jade tablet in a daze. He kept repeating, I found you, I finally found you. I found you. I found you. He rubbed the small jade plate again and again, without knowing how much time had passed, as if he was the only one left in the world with this white jade plate. Suddenly, he heard the sound of footsteps. He looked up and saw a man and a woman appear in front of him out of nowhere. The man suddenly panicked, holding the white jade plate in his hand tightly. He seemed to have some impression of this young man who suddenly appeared. He had seen this young man at the auction, so he said subconsciously, It's you? Luochio was a little disappointed. I've been waiting for you here for half an hour, and then I didn't hear anything other than, I found you, constantly repeating, I found you. I had no choice but to come out. What do you want to do? Do you want to take it away from me? The man became more nervous, like a lion or tiger protecting its cub. Luochio took out his white jade plate, shaking it. Can you tell me what's the secret of this thing? The man gave a start, then said with ecstasy, I knew it. I knew it. There's another one. I felt it when I saw you, I felt it. Sure enough, it's on you. Give it to me. The man suddenly rushed towards Luochio, like a madman. But before he could get it, Yu Yi had already put it on the ground. The man painfully covered his stomach, because of the violent impact. He wanted to vomit. Master, he's just an ordinary person. Yu Yi whispered in Luochio's ear. Luochio thought for a while, squatting down, Sir, I don't mean any harm. I just want to know what this thing is. Also, I want you to understand that this thing was bought by us at the auction, so it should belong to us in theory. But you snatched it away. The man gasped for breath, saying with difficulty, They belong to me. Not you, not any of you. Luochio frowned. As far as I know, the jade plate you snatched originally belonged to Guyu Zhai, then it was sent to the auction. As for the one in my hand, I'm afraid it's not yours, right? It's mine. The man suddenly opened his eyes. They all belong to me. 500 years ago, they all belonged to me. Luochio gave a start. 500 years ago? The man suddenly smiled bitterly. Do you believe in past and present lives? Yen PS1. The Z-Gang card really has a Z-Gang card. In history, there was a very famous jade craftsman called Lu Z-Gang in the Ming Dynasty. Well, this is a fictional story, so although it's a Z-Gang card, please don't take it personally. After all, it's just a story. If there's any similarity, it's purely fictional, probably. Laugh. PS2. You woke up early in the morning to write. Don't you want to give me a recommendation vote? PS3. I can't afford to play with red packets, and I don't want to play with red packet. Because he felt that the recommendations and collections that were obtained this way would lose the original flavor that they should have. But I still wish you all get more red packets because I will also pick up the money on the ground. Laugh. Chapter 25. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. There were monsters and Taoist cultivators. In the magical Eastern countries there were both past and present lives. Ordinary people might not believe it. However, Luocio was the kind of person who would believe it without any proof. Yi said that he would be able to see through people's hearts. Luocio was not sure whether it would be true in the future, but he felt that this man did not speak. Just like when he looked at this man in the eyes at the auction, he did not feel any malice from this man. He helped the man up and touched the other white jade in his hand. He began to listen to this man's story. This man was 34 years old. His name was Su Haud. He used to be an unmarried courier in a nearby transportation company. When he was young, he had a strange dream. In a magnificent hall, he saw the angry face of the emperor and the ferocious face of the guards with swords. When he had nightmares, the old man used an ancient prescription to drive away the evil spirits, but the effect was not obvious. As he grew older, Su Haud would have more and more dreams, and the things in his dreams became more and more real. Finally, when he was 30 years old, he knew what this long dream was and what he had. So, you're the maker of this pair of jade pendants? Luocio looked at Su Haud in surprise. The jade maker of the Ming dynasty? Su Haud smiled bitterly. You don't believe it? I didn't believe it myself at first. But not only this pair of jade pendants but also the other products that have been excavated, I remember them clearly. I recognize them. Su Haud caressed the white jade pendants in his hand and showed a trace of obsession. I remember every step, from the raw stone to the polishing, carving and engraving. Luocio pondered. Since Mr. Su knows that this is your past and present life, why do you still hold on to this white jade pendant? You're already in the modern era and have family and friends. Aren't you afraid of taking risks? I don't know. Su Haud shook his head and said with a painful expression, I was confused and hesitant. I've always been hesitant. But when I saw the white jade tablet at the venue, it was as if I was possessed. I couldn't control myself at all. I knew that I was Su Haud, not an ancient person from 500 years ago. However, another voice also told me that I couldn't just watch San Yang be bought by someone else. We've been separated for 500 years. I don't know when we'll meet again. Third Madam? Su Haud let out a wry smile and sighed. I used to be a master of jade crafting. I've been obsessed with jade all my life, and I've always been proud of my talent. That year, His Majesty Emperor Xianzong summoned me to the palace and ordered me to make a pair of white jade tablets and engrave a scroll of Taoist scripture into them. However, I can't read the Taoist scripture directly. I can only ask someone to read it beside me. And Sanyang was the one who was sent by Emperor Xianzong to read to me. It was only later that I found out that Third Madam wasn't an ordinary palace maid. She was the Emperor's concubine. Moreover, before entering the palace, Sanyang had gone to the mountains to learn Tao. Emperor Xianzong wanted immortality, so he went to the mountains to ask Old Immortal for help. At that time, Old Immortal agreed to the Emperor's request and let Sanyang follow him to the palace. In the eyes of outsiders, Sanyang was the Emperor's concubine. But in fact, she was a cultivator who taught the Emperor. This pair of white jade tablets was found in the East Sea in the past life of a strange stone. It had magical powers. Sanyang asked the Emperor to carve the strange stone into a jade tablet and inscribe a passage of the great Jade Emperor's Heart Seal Sutra that she had been practicing. The emperor wore it on his body, and often recited it while meditating. Su Hao's voice suddenly became low. During those days, Sanyang was my companion. She was originally an otherworldly person, but she met me. It was my fault for messing up her Tao heart. However, those days were the happiest days of my life. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. The day of the completion of the white jade tablets came. I knew that when the tablets were completed, Sanyang would return to the emperor's side. I also knew that even if we loved each other deeply, there was no way for us to be together. Su Hao sighed and said, I secretly engraved Sanyang's name and mine on this pair of jade tablets. I hoped that when Sanyang saw it, she would feel a little comforted. As he said, Su Hao spread out the white jade tablets in his hand. This is engraved with my usual signature. The one in your hand is more secretive and needs light to show it. It's Sanyang's name. It's the most common thing for jade craftsmen to sign their names on their product. Especially me, I had already regarded signing my name as the most common thing because I was the best craftsman at that time. But I neglected that this was for the emperor. How could the emperor wear someone else's name on his body all the time? The emperor not only found my name, but also Sanyang's name. He was furious at that time. Su Hao said in a hoarse voice, only then did I know that the emperor wanted immortality, but he also fell in love with Sanyang at first sight. The emperor wanted to kill me, and Sanyang begged for mercy for me. In a fit of anger, His Majesty invited a Taoist demon to inject Sanyang's 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls into this pair of white jade tablet. Then, he beheaded me outside the palace. My body and head were separated and sent to the southeast, where my real body was beheaded. I hate it so much. I swear that even if I become a ghost, I will not let it go. Even if my head is still in the womb, I will kill the emperor with my own hands and get back my Sanyang. But the emperor is dead, and I don't know where the jade tablets are. I have been looking for it, one life after another. I don't know how many times I have been reincarnated. But I finally found it. Su Hao's eyes suddenly changed. He grabbed Luochio's arm with both hands and said ferociously, "Give me the jade tablets. I want to release Sanyang." 500 years. A full 500 years. Her soul was separated and sealed in 2 small jade tablets. Do you know how miserable she is? This behavior did not make Luochio angry. He could feel the anger and sorrow in Su Hao's heart at this moment. But this behavior angered Yu Yi. She directly slapped Su Hao away and made him fall to the ground. As for the jade tablet in his hand, it rolled to the side. Su Hao was shocked at this time. He rolled and crawled to pick up the jade tablet. But at this time, the jade tablet suddenly rose out of thin air and flew to the other side. Finally, it fell into the hands of an old man. The old man was accompanied by a young man. When the white jade tablet was in his hand, the old man said in a low voice, "This should belong to my sect. It seems that the records are correct. It's you." Su Hao obviously recognized this old man. He was the one who saved him at the auction. Luochio also recognized him. At this time, the old man's face suddenly turned red. He shouted in a low voice, "Return the jade tablet in your hand to me." Almost at the same time, Luochio felt that his body became very heavy. The surrounding air seemed to be pressing against him. Suddenly, he felt that his breathing became somewhat rapid. "How dare you touch my master? You are courting death." Chapter 26. Genius remembers love go little in 1 second? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. After the monster, Luochio met the mysterious power of the ancient East again in a short time. A monk. The old man gave him a strange sense of oppression at the beginning, but the pressure soon disappeared. It was not because of Yu Yi, but because of the connection between his soul and the altar buried in the club. It was just like the descriptions of liches that he had read in some Western fantasy novels. Liches were immortal because they hid their hearts in their phylacteries. As long as their hearts were fine, they were immortal. This could also be applied to Luocchio. But it was not the heart, but the more illusory soul. Luoccio's soul was in the altar of the club. It was fine to say that he was imprisoned, but it was also fine to say that he was protected. Therefore, as long as the altar existed and Luocchio existed for a long time, theoretically, he could be considered immortal. Yu Yi, can you deal with this old man? Luocchio suddenly asked. Yu Yi said proudly, he's just a useless old man. How dare he threaten the owner with his spirit? I'll deal with him. It was not clear what kind of puppet Yu Yi was defined as by the alchemist who made Yu Yi. But since she could kill the Eastern monk, it was obviously not as simple as doing housework and greeting customers. The old man said the white jade plate belonged to his sect. I also want to know. Luocchio said, don't be too heavy-handed. Yu Yi nodded. Once again, a chilling look appeared in her eyes. An invisible and unfathomable spiritual power burst out all of a sudden. Luocchio didn't feel it clearly, probably because his ability hadn't reached the level it should be. But Yang Taizi personally felt the real meaning of the so-called reckless behavior. Love go little sag Chu under Yu Ye's strong mental pressure, Yang Taizi saw mountains of swords and seas of flames, as if he was under the wailing of thousands of ferocious ghosts. He guarded a little bit of peace and quiet in his fate altar. In Eastern cultivation, the most important thing was the life spirit. If the life spirit was damaged, the best-case scenario would be Qigong deviation. In the worst-case scenario, it was possible that the cultivator would never be reincarnated. In just an instant, the old man once again realized the huge difference between the two. He couldn't help but regret going to the toilet in the Taoist temple used for cultivation on the mountain. But there was no other way. This white jade token was an important item passed down by his sect. As a descendant of his sect, he had the obligation to take back the white jade token. If it was just an ordinary treasure that had nothing to do with the sect, the old man would have already seen how terrifying this bizarre woman was back at the auction venue. He definitely wouldn't want to court death. Wait a minute. Please wait a moment. Fellow Taoist. This pair of white jade tokens indeed belong to my sect. I mean no harm. I just wanted to scare you. Yang Taizi hurriedly shouted. How could he care about his face at this moment? Cultivating the Tao, cultivating the Tao, cultivating longevity. If he were to die like this in this place, how would he have the face to meet his ancestors? Why couldn't cultivators judge the situation and size up the situation? Why did they have to be stubborn to the end? This was called following the path of fate. If you knew it was impossible, you wouldn't do it. If you really thought that everyone was born to be the protagonist and believed in the saying, don't be a coward, fight directly, then no one would know even if you died tragically. That year during the war, he and a group of people escaped to the mountain and disturbed a Taoist who didn't care about worldly affairs. Coincidentally, they were accepted into the sect of the old man. After a period of time, a group of senior and junior brothers had some achievements in cultivation and had extraordinary abilities. They all went down the mountain and wanted to make a career in the troubled world. They didn't want longevity, nor could they bear the hardships of cultivation. They just wanted to enjoy a lifetime of glory and wealth. But Yang Taizi was different. He knew how to judge the situation and size up the situation. He knew that although his abilities were much better than ordinary people, there were cannons and grenades everywhere in the troubled world. How could a body of flesh and blood resist them easily? Besides, it was stupid to think that he could dominate the world with just some superficial knowledge. Yang Taizi didn't go down the mountain, but chose to stay with his master. Many years later, he had obtained the true inheritance of his master. But his senior and junior brothers had already died in the war, leaving no bones. They could only build a simple cenotaph. As the saying goes, everything can be discussed. Don't be arrogant and willful because of petty benefits. When it's time to be a coward, you should be a coward. As the saying goes, there's still a long way to go. Who knows what will happen in the future? Taking things slowly was the truth of life. Therefore, Yang Taizi completely lowered his posture. In the secular world, these Taoists were mysterious and should be respected. However, in the world of Taoists, a little bit of strength was a little bit of strength. A little bit of difference was the difference between heaven and earth. It was not a shameful thing to lower one's head to a stronger opponent. Luoqiu waved his hand to stop Yu Yi. Seeing an old man being bullied like this, he didn't feel much guilt in his heart. In fact, he especially disliked those guys who took advantage of their seniority. Generation after generation was different. This was probably the mentality of most young people. But it didn't mean that they couldn't respect the elders, but the elders should be respected. If the first impression was already bad, there would be an invisible and intangible barrier between people when they started to pay New Year's greetings. Su Hao told me a story that I can believe. Luoqiu pondered, but what reason do you have to make me believe that this pair of white jade tokens is from your sect? Seeing that there was room for negotiation, Yang Taizi hurriedly said, the High Jade Emperor's Heart Seal Sutra is engraved on this pair of jade tokens. But it's not the ordinary sutra that is handed down today, but an inner part. I can read some of it silently. If this guy is really a jade craftsman, he'll definitely recognize it and think that he can distinguish the real one. Luoqiu said indifferently, then let's have a try. Soon after, Yang Taizi recited a few sentences in his mind. It was probably something he recited randomly, which was incoherent and unclear. But Luoqiu carefully saw that Su Hao had some slight changes after hearing it. Unexpectedly, after Yang Taizi finished reciting, Su Hao insisted that this old man just wanted to take the jade tokens for himself. Benefactor, I've saved you once, you can't be so ungrateful. Yang Taizi was furious when he heard Su Hao's words. God is watching from above. God? Su Hao sneered. If there's really such a thing, why didn't you pity me when I was wandering in the human world all these years? Why didn't you pity Sanyang when she was split into 3 parts and 7 spirits by a demon? You're telling me that God is watching from above? Bah! Yang Taizi said. That year, the founder let Sanyang enter the palace to help Emperor Xian Zong cultivate Taoism. He intended to let her gain experience in the human world, sharpen herself and polish her Taoist heart. Who would have thought that her heart would be moved and she would have an affair with you, angering the emperor? You're so arrogant because of your talent that you engraved the evidence of your crime on the jade tokens. You deserve to be beheaded. Sanyang and I truly love each other, why would we care about the illusory immortality? You cultivators are so pure and simple, you're simply dehumanizing. You're just a group of cold-blooded animals who don't understand the true love of others. Give me back the jade tokens. Su Hao suddenly became crazy and rushed towards the old man. Luoqiu felt a bit annoyed when he saw this. He originally thought that he could understand the mystery of Taoism in the East, but it turned out to be such a melodramatic drama. He shook his head and turned to Yu Yi saying, these people are noisy, shut them up and give me the jade tokens. Yu Yi didn't have any scruples anymore since the master had spoken. The mysterious puppet created by the ancient alchemy suddenly released a powerful force. With a cold snort, Yang Taizi, Su Hao and the young man beside him all screamed and fell to the ground. They held their heads and showed a painful expression. Yu Yi waved at Yang Taizi and the jade tokens in his hand flew out. Yu Yi caught the jade tokens and sent them to Luoqiu. Luoqiu held the 2 jade tokens and looked at the different expressions of the 3 people on the ground. He said indifferently, I'd like to hear what Sanyang has to say. He gently put the 2 jade tokens together. If you're still alive, if you know that there's an infatuated person looking for you for hundreds of years, and if you know that the descendants of your sect are also here, then show yourself. At this moment, the 2 pieces of white jade plates that were put together lit up. 2 streams of green smoke came out from the jade plates, circled in the air, and finally merged into one. It gradually took shape. Ha 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 ha. 500 years. This old Taoist can finally see the light of day. The one who showed up was not Sanyang, but an unkempt and dirty-looking lunatic. Damn, it was another old man. Luochio was stunned and cursed. Fuck. Yin 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 yin. Chapter 27. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Evil Taoist. It's you! Su Hao stood there in a daze, his lips trembling slightly and his face turning pale. What came out of the white jade token was not San Yang, but one of his enemies. He did not know whether he should feel sad or angry. Even Yang Taizi showed a surprised expression, muttering to himself, "How could this be? How could this be? Is the secret record passed down by the sect fake? Is this not the real High Jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra?" No. The jade token does contain the High Jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra. However, all of this is not what you know. The old man in the green smoke suddenly sneered. You San Yang? You made me suffer 500 years of confinement. I, Taiyinzi, swore that if I break out of this cage, I'll make sure you'll never be reincarnated. You're Taiyinzi? The traitor who was expelled by the sect? Yang Taizi's expression became more awkward. Traitor? Ha 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 ha. Ridiculous. The one called Taiyinzi laughed crazily. Ridiculous. If you San Yang, that bitch, framed me, how could I be expelled by the sect? That evil woman should have been cut into pieces. Hearing this, Su Hao couldn't stand it anymore, shouting angrily, Evil Taoist! You're not allowed to insult San Yang. You made us separate for hundreds of years, and now you're slandering her. I won't let you go. Maybe because he was too scared, even if he used all his courage to say these words, Su Hao still couldn't help trembling. Taiyinzi sneered, Idiot! Do you think that evil woman really loves you so much? I'll tell you. That bitch is good at scheming. She pretended to be in love with you, but in fact, she just treated you as a furnace to cultivate her heart. The deeper you love her, the more she cherishes you. When you two can't be together, the great sadness you'll face when you're separated is her real purpose. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. Nonsense? Ha 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 ha. Taiyinzi laughed sorrowfully. Look at me. 500 years ago, I couldn't accept the enmity of being framed by that demoness. When she left the mountain and entered the palace, I followed her all the way. How did she make you fall in love with her? How did she use the true love between the two of you to cultivate her Tao heart of the great oblivion? I saw it all clearly. You're the only one who doesn't know. Do you really think you've met the love of your life? Do you really think she loves you and is willing to give herself to you? Under the moonlight? Let me tell you, that was just the lowest level of illusion. You're just daydreaming. Idiot. Idiot. Did you know that the moment you were ordered to be executed by the Emperor, Yu Sanyan succeeded? She saw your head being separated from your body with her own eyes, and she shed tears of sorrow. At that moment, her great oblivion had reached the small perfection stage. Her power has increased greatly, and I am not her opponent at all. Emperor Xian Zong asked me to deal with Yu Sanyang, but I was no match for her. In the end, my 3 souls and 7 spirits were beaten out by her and sealed in this pair of white jade plates. She pretended to be me, took the white jade plates and handed them to Emperor Xianzong. Then, she faked her death and escaped. From then on, she was free and unfettered. Humph, everyone was in her trap. Only you, an idiot, didn't give up after 500 years and turned into a vengeful spirit. Don't you think you're an idiot? You lied to me. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Su Hao rushed madly towards Taiyinzi in the green smoke. He waved his arms and fists, but he couldn't hit the green smoke that didn't have a body at all. Finally, he was exhausted and fell to the ground. With a hoarse voice and an infatuated expression, he kept repeating, You lied to me. You lied to me. You lied to me. Sanyang is true to me. She's sincere. I lied to you? idiot. If I lied to you, why am I the one trapped in the jade plates instead of you, Sanyan? Tainzi sneered and said, think about it carefully. Every time you two made love, did you feel tired? Did your consciousness become muddled? When a man and a woman make love, it should be a time of passion. You didn't drink, nor did you have any illness. How could you be muddled every time? You could have figured it out by using your brain. But you fell too deep into it and didn't want to think about it carefully. Now, the vengeful spirit hasn't left after 500 years. Isn't it because of your ignorance? You lied to me. Su Hao suddenly stood up. This time, he didn't rush madly towards Chuli. Instead, he rushed madly out of the cargo hold. A love go shao say w. Chuluachio frowned and looked at Yu Yi. Yu Yi stretched out her hand and flicked her finger. A faint light suddenly shot into Su Hao's back, and he fainted on the ground. Then it became awkward again. Let's take a look at the scene. A century-old ghost who came out of the jade plate, a vengeful spirit from 500 years ago, and the sect behind this matter. No matter how he looked at it, it was a family matter. It had nothing to do with Luachio. No, the only thing that was related was that one of the jade plates belonged to the club, and the other one belonged to Luachio in name. He had already bought it at the auction. Therefore, both jade plates were his. Yu Sanyan is the representative of ancient scheming bitches. Luachio thought for a while and broke the silence. However, it was clear that such words that broke the silence only made the situation more awkward. At this time, Tai Inzi suddenly shouted madly, "Boy! Shatter the white jade token in your hand." My 3 souls fell into the hands of that butterfly demon. I know about you. This is not your territory. Or I'll let you die a horrible death. Are you trying to scare me? Luachio said indifferently. If I didn't let you out, do you think you could get out of the jade plate? I even lost 10 minutes of time. Shaking his head, the glimmer of the white jade token suddenly disappeared. The cyan smoke seemed to be sucked into the jade token and split into 2. Finally, Tai Inzi let out a mournful wail and disappeared. Now there were only Yang Taizi, his disciple and Luochio who were still conscious. Luochio suddenly waved his hand, a black flame condensed in his palm, condensing into a black card without any golden seal. The black card then shot out, inserting into the cement floor in front of Yang Taizi's feet. Luochio said blankly, "These 2 jade plates are also mine. If you want to take them back, you have to exchange with something of equal value." The moment Luochio finished his words, Yang Taizi felt a strong spiritual power sweeping over him, shaking his consciousness out. Without any reaction, Yang Taizi fainted on the ground. "Master, what should we do with this Su Hao?" Yu Yi asked. Luochio said indifferently, "I don't have any enmity with him. What's there to deal with him? He's just a poor guy." Yu Yi said, "Master, don't you want to make a deal with him? His soul has been floating in the mortal world for 500 years, it's also a good thing." Luochio had his own standards, shaking his head. "If he really needs it, he'll come to us, right?" And Luochio smiled, leaving after showing off, "It's really exciting." Yu Yi didn't say anything. They left the cargo ship, heading for the airport. Not long after, Yang Taizi woke up leisurely. Looking at the black card beside him, he subconsciously drew it out and held it in his hand, remaining silent. His disciple saw this after waking up, asking curiously, "Master, what's this?" Yang Taizi didn't look sure, saying hesitantly, "I'm afraid it's a legend that has been passed down for a long time." "Is the legend true?" "Master, according to your order, the white jade plate has been sent anonymously by express delivery. If it's in the same city, it should be sent back to the woman surnamed Dong tomorrow." When entering the airport, Yu Yi returned to Luochio and reported. Then she asked confusedly, "Master, Yu Yi doesn't understand. The white jade plate has been found, why do you want to send it back?" Luochio said while reading the airport magazine, "If I don't send it back, how will I deal with it later? I don't want them to apologize to me every few days because they can't find the jade plate. Anyway, the woman surnamed Dong has promised to send it back personally after finding it. He flipped through the magazine for another night. Then let's wait for her to send it back and end it once and for all. Besides, we've already known the secret of the jade plate, so it doesn't matter if we wait for 1 or 2 days. Yu Yi nodded but didn't say anything. Luoqiu suddenly smiled. Do you think I'm too scrupulous? As the boss of the club, how could I be restricted by the secular rules? Isn't it too degrading? Yu Yi dare not. Luoqiu shook his head. There's nothing to be afraid of. You'll accompany me for a long time. If you don't dare to say anything, it'll be too boring. Yu Yi had to say, Master, you really don't need to be restricted by the secular rules. Luoqiu said, I also think so, but not now. Yes, I'm the boss of the club now, but it's only been a week. But before that, I've been a normal person for 20 years. The education I received, the ideas I've formed, and the morals in society are still very strong. Obviously, this week isn't enough time to destroy my past. Luoqiu paused, so, at least before I completely get used to it, I won't stay in the club all day long, and I won't be like the previous boss who can listen to music boxes all day long. There's nothing in the world that can move him. Do you understand? The fact that I'm still living in this society? Yu Yi nodded blankly. Luoqiu smiled. Maybe you can remember who you were before you became a puppet. Then you'll understand. This time Yu Yi shook her head with certainty. There's no need for that. Yu Yi exists to serve the club and listen to the boss's orders. That's enough. Luoqiu didn't want to say too much. If he said too much, he would be bored. Chapter 28. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. P.S. Thanks to XBC000000, Galankul, for the tip. Love go little saith Queen Yin. The following text Yin Rin Xiling planned to have a heart-to-heart talk with Luoqiu. The 29-year-old deputy editor said that she had been busy with work recently and had been negligent. She didn't do her job as a mother. Her soft and gentle voice could almost kill most men. Then, the box of crisps instantly killed Ren Xiling's following words. When she reacted, Luoqiu had already closed the door of the room. Listening to the old CD player that Lao Luo gave his son playing Eagles Desperado, Ren Xiling silently gnawed on a box of crisps. Then there was no then. Brat, do you have to be so emotional? In fact, there was no one in Luoqiu's room. After he returned to the room, he turned on the CD player and directly went back to the club. Who knew what the hell was playing? Sitting behind the club counter, Luoqiu said that it was too late and didn't want to drink flower tea. The considerate maid opened the wine cabinet on the side of the bar in front of Luoqiu for the first time. A bottle of vodka, a bottle of black cocoa, and a bottle of fruit-flavored gin. Yu Yi looked at Luoqiu with a faint smile on her face. Then she filled the shaker with ice cubes, poured the 3 kinds of drinks into small cups, and poured them into the shaker. She closed the lid and began to shake. There weren't too many tricks, but from beginning to end, Yu Ye's eyes never left Luoqiu. As the saying goes, beauty and fine wine are always suitable for each other. Luoqiu looked at them and felt relaxed and happy. Yu Yi shook the shaker until light white frost formed on the outside of the shaker. After the mixture turned light brown, she poured it into a cocktail glass. Accompanied by the rhythmic sound of high heels hitting the wooden floor, the mixed drink was also sent to Luoqiu. Luoqiu joked, I think I may have to invade the kitchen next time. Yu Yi looked at Luoqiu in confusion. Luoqiu smiled and said, because it's really a pleasure to see you cook or mix drinks. Yu Ye's faint smile turned into a smile. She walked slowly to the club lobby to have a nap. There was an old vinyl record player made of old pine wood placed here. Yu Yi put down the black record, pressed the needle, and slowly turned around. A soft and mysterious movement began to play. Yu Yi returned to Luoqiu's side and sat opposite him. The maid revealed a languid expression. Her legs were crossed under the hem of her skirt, and her elbows were placed on the round table. She cupped her face with her hands. Luocio took a sip of the mixed cocktail. He originally thought that it should be very strong mixed with vodka and gin wine, but he didn't expect it to be sweet and refreshing. Maybe it was because of the other black cocoa. He played with the white jade token he got from Pianxian and suddenly asked, "In this world, is there really a past life and a present life? Are there 10 Yama kings after reincarnation?" Yu Yi whispered, "There are many ancient legends in the East. People believe because they believe. But who knows? After all, it's not a way to let people see it with their own eyes." Luocio asked, "Then how do you explain Su Haud?" Yu Yi said, "People have thoughts and thoughts are the soul. So if the soul doesn't dissipate, the thoughts won't dissipate. There are ghosts and so on in this world. But in Yu Ye's view, these are all clusters of strong spiritual bodies. They left the carrier of the physical body, but they didn't dissipate because of their strong emotional obsession." Hearing this, Luocio said, "I've read some fantastic magazines. It said that the human spirit is like a kind of wave. When the spiritual wavelength of two parties is close or almost the same, maybe one party can accept the other party's thought wave. In other words, there is no such thing as a past life and a present life, but Su Haud found a carrier that can accept his thoughts?" Yu Yi smiled. "It's up to the master to believe it." Luocio shook his head and took another sip of the cocktail. He pursed his eyebrows and felt the fragrance of the wine lingering in his mouth. "It's strange. If there's reincarnation, where did the first human come from? There weren't many humans in the beginning. Now the population has exploded. If the dead can reincarnate, where did the first human come from? But maybe it did exist. The existence of the soul was not explained by the spirit, and there was also a kind of unknown management that could explain this phenomenon without reincarnation." Thinking of this, Luocio felt that he might fall into an unknown dead end if he continued to think about it. He didn't want to be a philosopher, so he shook his head self-mockingly and stopped thinking about it. Then, the bell placed at the door rang. Zhong Luochen came, travel-worn. On the way, Zhong Luochen checked the information of this street with the map on his mobile phone. He didn't find the existence of the club on the map, but another shop. Even a picture of the street was marked. However, the club miraculously replaced the shop. He once stood at the entrance of the club and found that one after another passers-by walked past him into the club he saw. However, they quickly walked out with only some supplies. Obviously, the club that he saw and the shop that the pedestrians saw were in the same location, but they were probably in different spaces. Zhong Luochen was in awe of this magic. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door of the club again. He saw the man with the clown mask and the beautiful woman dressed as a maid. Zhong Luochen was not in the mood to linger on such beauty, so he came straight to the point. "Mr. Clown, I've brought my grandfather here, and he's staying in a hotel nearby." Luocio waved his hand and stopped Zhong Luochen from talking. Then he waved the black cane in his hand, and something even more mysterious and unimaginable appeared in Zhong Luochen's eyes. The corridor was filled with soft lights and carpeted. Zhong Luochen was slightly frightened. "This is a hotel?" Luocio walked in front with his hands behind his back. "Guest, take me to see your grandfather. But I have a request. I hope there are no more outsiders, except for you and your grandfather." Zhong Luochen immediately said, "My family was worried this time, so they insisted on coming. But don't worry, Mr. Clown, I've asked them to wait on the floor below. But there's not much time." Luocio said indifferently, "Got it." In a suite, Luocio finally saw Zhong Luochen's grandfather. He was lying on the bed, with a needle in his arm and an infusion bag hanging. There were a lot of instruments next to him. The old man looked haggard and pale, without a trace of blood. He lay there like this, not far from death. Luocio walked to the old man's side and suddenly thought, "Did I see too many old people today?" But this absent-mindedness didn't affect what he was supposed to do. Luoqiu stretched out his hand and pressed on the old man's face. Some black light spots started to emerge from the forehead of Zhong Luoqin's grandfather, and were absorbed into Luoqiu's palm. At this moment, the door of the suite was knocked, and a man's voice was heard. Luoqin, I heard some noise, are you back? Open the door. Open the door. You don't want us to guard grandfather, what do you mean? The knocking on the door was very loud, obviously with a lot of strength. If you don't open the door, don't blame me for barging in. Is there someone else inside? Zhong Luoqin looked at the door anxiously. From the voice, he knew it was his elder brother, Zhong Luoyun. This guy was very suspicious. He must have used some method to spy on him. Otherwise, it would be too much of a coincidence for his elder brother to come here right after he came back. Mr. Clown, I don't know, Zhong Luoqin hurriedly turned around, but he couldn't see Luoqiu's figure. But the scene in front of him almost made his heart jump out of his chest. The old man lying on the bed had opened his eyes at some point and sat up. Although his face was still haggard, his eyes were still clear. Where is this? Luoqin? The old man slowly opened his mouth. At the same time, Zhong Luoqin heard this sentence. Customer, we have delivered the goods you requested. The transaction is complete. Zhong Luoqin was dazed for a moment, and he found himself in a pitch-black world. A sheepskin scroll floated in front of his eyes and burned, then disappeared. He felt as if something had been taken out of him, and he subconsciously touched his body. His vision became clear at this moment, and he was back in the suite. Perhaps because he saw Zhong Luoqin's strange appearance, the old man slowly opened his mouth again. Luoqin, what are you looking for? Zhong Luoqin suddenly shivered and stopped his hands. He looked up at the old man and suddenly fell to the ground. He didn't feel the slightest bit of joy that he should feel. It was as if he was looking at a complete stranger. Luoqin. The old man opened his mouth for the third time. Zhong Luoqin swallowed his saliva and stood up. He didn't know what his expression was, but he knew that he tried his best to squeeze out an expression of ecstasy. Chapter 29. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. PS1. Thank you for your only for the desire and my heart's tips and your silent vote. Today's weather is very good. Of course, I'm here laughing. Yen 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 yen. The following text yen 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 yen. Miracle. It's really a miracle. No. This is already a miracle. The Zhong family members were relieved to hear the attending doctor's excited speech as he examined old Master Zhong's condition. As for old Master Zhong, who knew his own situation and knew that he had come back from the gates of death, he couldn't help but burst into tears with his good brother who had accompanied him for decades. Doctor, are you sure my grandfather is fine? You'd better check carefully. If there's any mistake, I will never forgive you. The eldest brother, Zhong Luoyun, stared sharply at the attending doctor who was so excited that he forgot himself. Ah, eldest young master. You're right. The attending doctor hurriedly said, although all the instruments here show that old Master Zhong is in good condition, it's better to do a more detailed examination. Zhong Luoyun nodded and said, I'll arrange it right away. The attending doctor had to be busy for a while. As for the other assistant, he looked curiously at the second young master of the Zhong family and said, Second young master, what method did you use to reverse old Master Zhong's situation? This was a miracle in the medical field. If there's really a way to cure this terminal illness, it's really a revolutionary breakthrough in the history of human medicine. Unexpectedly, Zhong Luoqin said indifferently, Listen, the people who cured old Master Zhong are you, and it can only be you. No one here can reveal what happened today, no matter who it is. This, everyone looked at the calm Zhong Luoqin in surprise. His mother and eldest brother, Zhong Luoyun, frowned at the same time. Just as Zhong Luoyun was about to speak, old Master Zhong suddenly said, You all can leave. Luoqin, old Luo, you stay too. I have something to ask. Grandfather? Father! However, old Master Zhong's face suddenly darkened. His boldness in managing this large clan for decades made everyone shut their mouth. There was no need to say anything more. Everyone could only leave the suite silently. After everyone left, leaving only Zhong Luochen and old Luo, old Master Zhong opened his mouth again and again. I still have some self-awareness, and I'm not a person without common sense. It wasn't just a day or two ago that I discovered the problem in my head. I know very well how long an old man like me still has to live. Luochen, tell me honestly, what did you do? Grandfather, it's fine as long as you can recover. Zhong Luochen said softly, the rest is not important. Old Luochen, Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Master Zhong Fun sighed, old Luochen sighed. Old Luo sighed. He knew that he couldn't hide it anymore, so he could only smile bitterly and say, Master, I'm sorry. Luochen Luo Luochen. Luochen, Luochen, old Zhong's expression changed slightly. His recuperation of painting and calligraphy in his later years was suddenly broken. He waved his hand and slapped old Luo's face angrily. He said, Fool! Luochen old Luo, how could you be so foolish? Don't you know what that place is? It's not a holy mountain, it's a place like hell. Old Luo lowered his head, not daring to speak. Luochen didn't feel wronged. He had followed old Master Zhong for decades. The relationship between them had long surpassed the blood relationship of ordinary people. Old Luo sighed again. Master, the Zhong family can't live without you. I asked second young master to go there. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Old Master Zhong smiled bitterly. What's the use of blaming you now? But Luochen. He turned to Zhong Luochen, taking a deep breath. Son, tell me honestly, what did you use in exchange for my life in that place? Zhong Luochen opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Old Master Zhong shook his head. That place is mysterious, but if no one knows, how could you find it? Your grandfather Luo told you, and I told him. Zhong Luochen had to tell him everything, including how he got the black card from Guyu Zhai and what happened in the club. Seeing Zhong Luochen saying all this without the slightest bit of emotion, the old Master Zhong could not help but say sorrowfully, using your lifetime of happiness in exchange for 5 years of my life, an old man who should have died. Silly child, do you think it's worth it? Zhong Luochen said indifferently, It's worth it. Grandpa, don't you know that once you fall, the Zhong family will fall apart immediately? Our Zhong family has meddled in too many things. My father, who should have been responsible for these things, became like this in his early years. And the third generation, whether it's my elder brother, my younger sister, or me, we haven't matured yet. He sighed. Now is not the past, and the society is not the past. Can we, who have developed since that era, control everything secretly like we did 20 or 30 years ago? He shook his head. We can't. Even to the people now, we're more like a malignant tumor. Grandpa, if you're not here, how can we support the Zhong family with only my brother and sister and my father who has become like this? Once you fall, everyone will be in danger, and the relatives will think about how to divide the family's wealth. As the saying goes, when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. You're the only towering tree in the Zhong family now. I won't let you fall so easily. 5 years. 5 years. Old Master Zhong murmured to himself, looking at Zhong Luochen sadly. The old man cried, My child, it's been hard on you. Everything will be fine. Zhong Luochen shook his head. Old Master Zhong was silent for a while. I want to be alone for a while, all of you can leave now. On the 3rd floor of the club. The sacrifice was successful. You've gained 127 days, 9 hours, 43 minutes, and 7 seconds of lifespan. Luochen opened his mouth in astonishment. What the hell was the 9 hours and 7 seconds? You're purposely showing your existence on the altar, aren't you? Having said that, Luaccio was too lazy to complain after the sacrifice. He directly returned to the lobby of the club. The new boss of the club, who felt that he had a much longer lifespan, seemed to be in a good mood. He imitated Yu Yi and walked to the bar counter to mix the same cocktail. Of course, he only did this because he felt that it was new. As for whether the finished product was a glowing dish or a dark one, what did it matter? Anyway, only he would drink it. Yu Yi was just a puppet and couldn't eat at all. Thinking that he forgot to take out the ice cubes from the fridge, Luaccio was surprised to see the door of the fridge open directly. The ice cubes in the ice cubes fell out and flew to him in an orderly manner, then fell into the cocktail pot one by one. Luaccio was stunned. Yu Yi said with a smile, "Congratulations, master, your ability has been strengthened again." Luaccio curiously stretched out his finger and pointed at one of the ice cubes in the cocktail pot. He found that the ice cubes directly floated. As his finger moved, the ice cubes also began to make an infinite circle in the air. The playful Luaccio put all 10 of his fingers on the bar counter at the same time. He looked at Yu Yi and raised his eyebrows. His fingers began to lightly tap on the bar counter. One by one, the ice cubes flew out of the cocktail pot and arranged themselves in the air, forming a circle in the lobby of the club. Luaccio stretched out his finger and drew a wavy curve. The ice cubes in the circle rose up and down one after another. It was a never-ending wave. His finger pointed at the pine wood vinyl record player in the corner. A vinyl record flew out and fell into the record player. Accompanied by the sound of the record player, Luaccio stepped on the sign and gently nodded his head, walking out of the bar counter. It was Rod Stewart's Sailing. Luaccio grabbed Yu Yi's hand and transmitted his own rhythm to the servant doll. He pulled Yu Yi and began to gently swing in the club. The seats and stools began to automatically lean against the wall. The empty space turned into a dance floor. The nostalgic sound of the voyage sounded. Luaccio continued to stretch out his finger and pointed at the furnishings in the display cabinets one by one. Dolls, old pocket watches, hats and wine glasses. There were also eyeballs emitting crimson light. More ice cubes flew out of the fridge. They once again combined into a transparent ice crystal spectrum, dancing in the air with the melody. Several dolls landed on the wooden floor at the same time, surrounding Luaccio and Yu Yi. When the needle turned halfway, Luaccio raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Isn't it more interesting than doing nothing and just sitting there?" Yu Yi took the initiative to pull Luaccio's other hand and guided this new owner of the dance steps that were too horrible to look at. Yu Yi joked, "However, it will probably be a huge project to clean up later." Luaccio looked at the doll in amusement. There were times when she wasn't cold. She didn't speak and let her words turn into emotions in the music and melody. Then, the bell in the pine wood door suddenly rang. The ice cubes scattered on the ground like marbles. The dancing decorations stopped abruptly. It was as if the stage had been swept up by a gust of wind. Luaccio looked at the mess and let out an "oh-oh" sound. He looked at the wooden door that was knocked open like a gust of wind and appeared in front of him, a floating black robe. Then, under the hood was a cloud of black smoke without a face. Black Soul Envoy greets the new owner. Yen 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 PS2. Do you know why it starts with PS1? Because PS2 is here. If the weather is bad, why don't you listen to Rod Stewart's Sailing? Life will become much better. Chapter 30. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small? I will provide you with wonderful novels to read. The black robe was only concealing a mass of black mist, but it was able to emit sound. Floating in the air, the lower part of the robe swayed slightly. Its general image was very similar to the ghosts in Western legends. Black Soul Emissary, that was what it called itself. Luaccio looked up and down. The altar that imprisoned his soul was now very conscientiously revealing the information of this Black Soul Emissary to Luaccio. The club needed a steady stream of customers, otherwise the club's owner would die soon. So how to increase the number of customers? Just like the existence of the black card, other than making customers willing to come to trade through discounts, there was also the existence of advertising. The Black Soul Emissary was like the existence of the club's advertising. They wandered in the society, constantly spreading the existence of the club in the dark. Legends and legends were actually created by people with intentions. These Black Soul Emissaries were actually evolved from souls, and these souls were all used as transaction fees and eventually belonged to the club. If they were useful or had good abilities, they could choose to store the souls in the warehouse, then turn them into Black Soul Emissaries, and finally work for the club outside for free. The new boss of the club felt that this kind of free labor was actually very good. He had nothing to be dissatisfied with. These loyal and would not betray him. They did not even need manual labor and silently pulled in customers outside. This was simply a touching form of praise, okay? Greetings, Miss Yu. Black Soul's voice was as respectful as when it was facing Luochio. It could be seen that Yu Ye's position in the club was indeed second only to the boss's privilege. Master, do you want to hear the report from number 9? Yu Yi asked Luochio. Luochio knew that Black Soul had no name, only numbers, so he did not feel strange. He looked at Yu Yi curiously and said, "You should, right?" Yu Yi explained, "The previous boss only let me be in charge. That must be because the previous boss had reached a new height of isolation, right?" Luochio smiled and said, "I'll listen. Number 9, begin the report." Yu Yi nodded and ordered. Black Soul number 9 said in a gloomy voice, "Master, number 9 has successfully implanted information about the existence of the club into 7 different investors." Black Soul number 9's black robe suddenly opened, and 7 white cards flew out from its black fog-like body and arrived in front of Luochio. Black Soul number 9 continued, "These are the information of the 7 new customers. Master, please take a look." As long as he put his finger on a white card, he would be able to know the information sealed in the card, instead of reading a long document or listening to a boring introduction. Luochio felt really good as he started to select one of the white cards without thinking. Yu Yi was afraid that Luochio didn't know the rules, so she said softly, "Master can choose the right one from the 7 new investors and give the black card discount. Of course, you don't have to make black cards. Black Soul has been doing this kind of business for many years, and more than 70% of the investors they choose will come to the club. The black card discount was just a means to attract transactions, but if they really needed it, they would come even if there was no discount. For example, Butterfly Demon Pianxian was one of them. Of course, the reason why Black Soul's potential customers were called potential customers was because these people were able to pay more than the customers who did not have the black card, did not know the legend, and just came in by themselves. They would have more opportunities. Black Soul called it a business. The more investors it found and the more successful the transactions were, the higher the performance of Black Soul would be. High performance could also bring some benefits to Black Soul. For example, it could have a physical body, recover some memories, and be liberated from the labor of the club. Well, the last reward could actually be crossed out manually. Because in the history of the club, no Black Soul had successfully obtained the liberated reward. Luochio read the credits of the 7 white cards while asking Yu Yi, "How many Black Soul envoys do we have?" "Now there are 21 left." Yu Yi quickly reported the number. Luochio was surprised, "So few?" Yu Yi explained, "Master, you already know that there are monks and demons in this world. So, there are some strange people who use the slogan of exorcism to subdue demons. The existence of Black Soul envoys is very similar to evil spirits, so there are always some troublesome exorcists or demon subduers in this world who will target and eliminate Black Soul envoys." Yu Yi explained in more detail, because in the eyes of these people, the club is an evil existence. It is indeed an evil existence, Luochio ridiculed in his heart, but he listened silently. So, in the name of justice, they have been trying to eliminate the club for all these years. Yu Yi sneered, it's just that these guys are overestimating themselves. They don't know that the reason why the club hasn't done anything to them is that these guys themselves can provide a large amount of transaction fees. Looking at the other side of the puppet girl, Luocio continued to listen in silence. We won't choose to directly retaliate against these troublesome people. Instead, we will let more black soul envoys lure them. As long as they have something in their heart, that is their weakness. The soul of a righteous and noble demon subduer is comparable to the souls of dozens or even hundreds or thousands of ordinary people. Luocio, who didn't intend to express his opinion, frowned and said, if so, then there should be a lot of black soul envoys. Why are there only 21 left? Yu Yi said, on the one hand, it is to show weakness. If there are too many black soul envoys, it will make these self-proclaimed righteous people feel despair, and sooner or later they will be wiped out. If they are wiped out, there will be no way to cultivate more offspring, and one of the club's most important sources of transaction fees will disappear. On the other hand, the former boss didn't have the heart to work in recent decades. After the accumulated black soul envoys were wiped out one by one, he didn't replenish them. Luocio nodded and put away the white card in front of him. He looked at Black Soul number 9 and said, I'll read these materials slowly. You can continue with your work. Black Soul number 9 didn't say anything and silently left the club. Luocio looked at Yu Yi and said, I want to go to Boss Asthus's room to have a look. Boss Asthus was the former club owner who made a deal with Luocio and sold the club to Luocio. And the former boss's room was always locked. Of course, it could be opened. Chapter 31. Genius 1 second. Remember love/go/little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The old door axle made a long squeaking sound when it was closed. Because the window had not been opened for a long time, the old smell in the room was released. Boss Ozus wasn't someone from this era, so it wasn't surprising that the furnishings in the room were ancient. Yu Yi did not follow Luocio in, but just stood at the door. Maybe it was out of respect for the former boss, or maybe it was out of awe. Of course, it could be something else. This room would probably be a rare treasure house in the eyes of a historian. But in fact, everything in the club could be called a treasure house. Luocio walked to the windowsill. The curtain was just a black gauze. There was also a small round table and a small square wooden chair. The chair was pulled out, and there were many scratches at the foot of the chair, probably because it was pulled out for a long time. Luocio directly sat on the chair and closed his eyes. Boss Ozus would probably spend a lot of time sitting here every day. He did not know what was the use of this, but he felt that he should feel the feeling of sitting here. When he was sitting here, what was he focused on? After a while, Luocio, who found nothing, stood up and began to walk around the room. Against the other side of the wall was a simple desk, but both the drawers and the table were empty. As for the wardrobe in the room, there was only one set of clothes. The bed was there, and so was the bedside table. There was a candlestick on the bedside table, and these were the only things in the room. Therefore, Luocio didn't see the music box that Yu Yi said could produce sounds after the winding of the clockwork. It was like the former boss did not leave anything for Luocio except the first letter. Luocio could not help but feel a little disappointed. When he was about to leave, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He walked to the round table again, squatted down, and looked at the floor of the round table. Using the same method, he looked at the bottom of the desk and flipped the bed over. He even looked at the back of the drawer. Finally, he moved the wardrobe. He looked at the cracks on the wall behind the wardrobe and the back of the wardrobe. There's really nothing left. Or am I overthinking it? Luocio muttered to himself. In the end, he could only helplessly restore the room to its original appearance. Unknowingly, it was already time for the sun to rise. A gentle breeze blew away the veil covering the windows, and the sunlight shone on the glass window. Only then did Luocio realize that this was a window pane. At this moment, the fragmented sunlight and the glazed flower windows combined to form a dazzling light painting. The room seemed to become much more vivid all of a sudden. Luo Qiu subconsciously walked to the window, opened the curtains, and pushed open the glass window. Outside was the commercial street that he was familiar with in the early morning. It was the commercial street he was familiar with. Luo Qiu closed the window pane. When he was about to pull up the black window screen, he saw the sunlight reflected on the wooden floor through the window pane. It was a neatly arranged pattern, but Luo Qiu was afraid that it was a kind of ancient text. But it seemed that they would disappear soon, probably because of the angle of the sunlight. Luo Qiu directly grabbed his mobile phone and captured the scene on the floor. At this time, the text had become blurred and soon melted into a fragmented light. Luo Qiu showed the captured image to Yu Yi. Yu Yi, do you recognize these words? Yu Yi just shook her head and showed a surprised look. Even if the maid had worked here for 300 years, she had never walked into Boss Isaac's room, so it was probably the first time she saw this kind of thing. But Yu Yi didn't recognize it, so the text was probably from 300 years ago, or something even more ancient. Luo Qiu tried to put his palm on the phone screen, intending to use the identification ability, but he only got this response from the altar. The text content has been lost. Do you want to use 1,000 years of lifespan to repair and translate the content? Luo Qiu felt that there should be a what the fuck here. But at this time, another message came from the altar. 10 years of lifespan can be used to purchase the source. Well, there should be another what the fuck here. Master? Looking at Luo Qiu's somewhat silent appearance, Yu Yi asked tentatively. Luo Qiu sighed, calmed his mood and said, "It's okay, at least it's not empty-handed. There's still a long way to go. Moreover, with a goal, I'll probably become more active." He later told Yu Yi to continue working, and returned to his original home. At this time, Ren Xiling naturally hadn't woken up from her sleep. Luo Qiu felt that it was a waste to spend 10 years to buy the text, so he directly copied the captured image to the computer, and then used the photo editing software to cut a few of the most clear text into separate images, and then piece them together into a new picture. He uploaded it to Zhihu. Title content: what kind of text is in the picture? Next, he just needed to wait for the interpretation of enthusiasts. If no one recognized it, he could consider the overseas Quora website. If no one recognized it, then he would work hard to earn more lifespan. Speaking of working hard to earn lifespan, Luo Qiu had to start reading the information of the 7 customers brought by Black Soul 9 this time. In theory, the black card with the mark should be issued to customers who could still make a profit even if the price was discounted. It wasn't as simple as using the transaction fee as a sacrifice to gain lifespan after the customer bought something. Through these transactions, Luo Qiu understood that he was also a customer of the club, but the biggest one, and his lifespan was the only currency he had. The purchase of information, the appraisal of items, or the release of Taiyinzi's soul from the white jade token could all be done through his lifespan. Then there was the storage. After the storage, the items would lose the ability to be sacrificed. That was to say, in the future transactions, Luo Qiu would use his lifespan to replace the transaction fee if he liked it. Strictly speaking, this was also a kind of consumption behavior. Therefore, his lifespan wasn't something that didn't generate profit. The first white card appeared in Luo Qiu's palm, and then broke into pieces, turning into photons like a fog, winding around his head. Luo Qiu closed his eyes. Jiang Chu returned to the hospital early. In the hospital, it was rare for a doctor of Jiang Chu's level to arrive early. He was in his early 40s, but he was elegant and a famous chief surgeon of the neurosurgery department. Talent, fame, and wealth. He divorced his ex-wife 10 years ago and was still single. Therefore, many girls in the hospital admired Jiang Chu. Chapter 32. Genius remembers love in 1 second/little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Jiang Chu stared blankly at the black card that suddenly appeared, as if a whirlpool was dragging him into it. He stared strangely at the black card for more than 10 minutes, not moving at all, as if he had heard a voice that would often appear beside him for no reason during this period of time. "Dr. Jiang, the director wants to see you in his office." At this moment, the voice of the girl on duty sounded. Jiang Chu was stunned. He raised his head and found that his back was wet. He said absent-mindedly, "Oh, I know, I'll be right there." Jiang Chu hurriedly closed the file, but after a moment of hesitation, he finally put the black card into the pocket of his white coat. A few minutes later, Jiang Chu arrived at the director's office. The director, who had just celebrated his 63rd birthday last month, looked much healthier than the average middle-aged man in his 50s. The director saw Jiang Chu, whom he valued, and immediately smiled. "Jiang Chu, I knew you would be willing to wait for me at this hour. Director, is there anything I can help you with?" Jiang Chu sat down. The director said, "Here's the thing, I need your help with this matter." Jiang Chu said seriously, "Director, just tell me, what's the matter?" The director sighed. "I have an old classmate. His granddaughter was found to have an incipient tumor in her brain. He found me. Well, I've checked the patient's condition in detail these days. Then I recommended you to him." Seeing that Jiang Chu was still calm, the director was satisfied, but his expression became more serious. "She's less than 5 years old, and the nerves in her brain are still very fragile. To be honest, there are so many doctors in the hospital, and I don't trust anyone else except you." Jiang Chu suddenly said, "Director, I've asked for a leave of absence last week." The director said gently, "I know you haven't had a good rest these years. I've already approved your leave of absence, but this old classmate of mine has been my friend for decades. You can postpone your leave of absence temporarily. After the operation is completed, I can even give you a month's leave." Jiang Chu said, "But director, it's not easy to operate on a child. If there's any chance, shouldn't we let the experienced Dr. Huang do it?" The dean was slightly displeased. "This time, you'll need to operate on the frontal lobes of the brain. Trust me, there's no one around who's more talented than you in this field." "Jiang Chu, you don't have to be so modest. I'm not the kind of person who ranks based on seniority. Compared to qualifications, I value personal medical ethics and skills more. Do your best in this operation. If you can complete it beautifully, I'm going to promote you to be my assistant." Jiang Chu looked at the dean in surprise. The dean said earnestly, "I've been working hard for so many years. It's time for me to rest. Jiang Chu, I value your character and your ability. Trust me, after a few more years of training, this hospital will definitely need you to take charge of it." The dean walked to Jiang Chu's side and patted his shoulder. "You have the ability, so don't belittle yourself. What's more, my old classmate has agreed to let you perform the operation. If you back out now, it'll be troublesome." Jiang Chu frowned and asked after hearing some other words. He had to play the friendship card. "Professor, just tell me frankly, who's that person?" "He's an old man in the health bureau. Although he retired, his words still carry a lot of weight." The dean smiled. "Have some confidence in yourself and don't feel too pressured. Although this operation is difficult, it's not a problem for you. Don't let me down." Jiang Chu had to say, "I want to see the patient's information first." "No problem, I'll send it to you in a moment." After saying that, the dean started to patrol. As for Jiang Chu, after returning to his office, he stared blankly at the table with a long face. He suddenly looked at his hands. After a while, he suddenly took out a small knife from the pen holder and held it like a scalpel. But as soon as he held it, his wrist began to tremble slightly. Jiang Chu waved his hand abruptly and threw the small knife on the ground. Then he covered his face in pain. Both of his hands were trembling. After a preliminary self-diagnosis, Jiang Chu had no choice but to realize what had happened to him. He was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Parkinson's disease. Not only would his hands tremble at any time, but if it happened during the operation, then, originally, he had asked for a long leave in order to discuss with a doctor friend abroad if there was any way to solve his problem. But as his teacher, the dean obviously had high hopes for this operation. He also knew the significance of this operation to his future career. However, it's so ironic the chief surgeon lost his hands. Jiang Chu couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. These 2 days, nothing happened in the club. But Luoqiu still received a message from Zhang Qingrui, saying that the auction house had found the lost item and sent it to him personally. She didn't know where Luoqiu lived, so she had to contact him by phone. Luoqiu didn't want to expose his residence, although it was not difficult to investigate it in this information age. He finally chose to meet her at Guyuzhai. He had thought that the fat manager would send the jade token, but unexpectedly, it was the owner of the auction house who sent it in person. It was a lady named Dong Minghua. That lady didn't come? Seeing only Luoqiu, Zhang Qingrui asked curiously. Luoqiu said, "She's busy." Dong Minghua smiled. "Finally, it's just a false alarm. You may not believe it, but this jade token was sent back anonymously the next day. No one knows what happened in it." She said this to Luoqiu because Zhang Qingrui didn't show any surprised expression. Apparently, she had known it earlier. But Luoqiu, who knew it earlier, had to pretend to be surprised. That's really weird. Dong Minghua didn't know why she lowered her attitude. "Mr. Luo, I'm really sorry for the false alarm. If it's possible, I'd like to invite you and that lady to have a meal." Luoqiu didn't want to deal with aliens, so he said directly, "Don't mention it. Ms. Dong, since the jade token has been returned to me, I won't pursue it any further." Dong Minghua put on a fake smile. "In that case, I'll treat you to a meal even more." Luoqiu had to say, "I'm also busy today." It was the first time for Dong Minghua to meet someone who didn't give her face like this. She wondered whether this guy was a hothead or really that busy. But she had spoken twice. If she continued, she would lose face. So she had to nod. "That's a pity. But if Mr. Luo comes to my auction house next time, remember to inform me, so I can send someone to greet you." Luoqiu also nodded. "That's fine." Zhang Qingrui was dumbfounded. She knew that Luoqiu was an eccentric person, but he was so unreasonable that he would suffer a lot in the future. But on the other hand, she admired Luoqiu's character. He didn't curry favor with the rich and powerful, and was actually a free person. Now the society was impetuous, and it was rare for a young man to have such a character. "Well, Ms. Zhang, I still have something to do at the auction house, so I have to go back soon." Dong Minghua said, "It's really a pity that I didn't see Mrs. Zhang today. If there's a chance next time, I'll definitely visit." Zhang Qingrui also said a few words of courtesy, and then saw Dong Minghua out. Now she turned back and saw Luoqiu still standing there, and couldn't help but be surprised. In her opinion, Luoqiu should have left just now without saying anything. "Well, there's something I want to trouble you with," Luoqiu said directly. "Even the person who asks for help is like this?" Zhang Qingrui smiled helplessly. "Do you know that you just offended a very influential person in the antique circle? Now you're speaking in such a matter-of-fact tone, aren't you afraid that you'll offend me too?" Luoqiu was stunned and thought for a while. "I've been lending you my notes, Zhang Qingrui." Zhang Qingrui sighed. "Tell me, what's the matter?" But just after she finished speaking, Zhang Qingrui frowned and said angrily, "How can you use this kind of thing to force me to repay you? Stingy." "But I've lent you my notes many times." Yin 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 yin. Chapter 33. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? I will provide you with wonderful novels to read. A box. Yes, 3rd Mississippi. A love go little say. Chu. That day, Miss Zhang from Guyuzhai delivered a box in person. The 3rd Miss squinted at Qing Yun. This ambitious man was easy to bribe. He was not only greedy for money, but also lustful. However, he was smart and observant. He knew what kind of woman he could play with, and what kind of woman he couldn't have any delusions about. For example, right now, Qing Yun was restraining his aggressive gaze. The Zhong family's third miss smiled and said, Do you know what's inside the box? Qing Yun immediately said, Of course I know. I even secretly took a picture of it when the second young master wasn't paying attention. Qing Yun took 2 steps forward, but didn't dare to get too close. Although the third miss was charming, she wasn't a woman he could touch casually. All he needed to do was to gain enough benefits from the Zhong family's third Mississippi. What's this? The third miss frowned at the picture on her phone. Qing Yun said, I'm not sure, but it should be a strange black card. The second young master never left this card. It was very difficult for me to secretly take a picture of it. The picture was taken from the back of the person's shoulder. That day, after the second young master got this card from Miss Zhang, he went out alone. Not long after, he asked me to arrange for him to return to the capital. I didn't expect that he would bring the old master here. What's more, the old master miraculously recovered. The third miss pondered for a moment and suddenly said, Qing Yun, can you help me get this card? Qing Yun's face slightly changed. This third miss, the second young master never left. What? The third miss chuckled. When you get benefits from me, no matter how much it is, you only nod. You only shake your head when I ask you to do something for me? I didn't mean that. Qing Yun frowned. But the old master's condition is getting better these 2 days. The doctor also said that he's fine except for his weak body. I heard from the second young master that the old master might go to Gu Yuzhai tomorrow. I'm guessing that this card might be returned. Because when Miss Zhang called the items over, she said that you have to return them after using them. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. The Zhong family's third miss said indifferently, Isn't that good? Since there would be a handover, wouldn't the opportunity to make a move come? Do it well. If you are loyal to me, there will be many benefits for you. But if she's useless, I don't think second brother would want someone who would betray him, right? I know. Qing Yun hurriedly nodded and left in fear. The third daughter of the Zhong family walked to the floor-to-ceiling window of the 9 o'clock suite. She lifted the curtain and looked at the busy street. That guy from Gu Yuzhai. He's a taboo in the capital. Second brother has been here for more than a month. What does that black card mean? She seemed to be looking forward to it and subconsciously played with the old ring-shaped pendant around her neck. You want to learn how to appraise antiques? Zhang Qingrui looked at Luoqiu with surprise. She remembered that last time when Ren Xiling brought her here, Luoqiu suddenly became interested in antiques, so he wanted to learn about them. Let's not talk about the matter of Yu Yi bidding for the white jade. Now that he made such a request, did he really have a strong interest in antiques? Yes. Luoqiu nodded and said straightforwardly, I know antique appraisal is a profound knowledge, so I don't want to reach the sky in one step. So I want you to introduce some basic knowledge to me. As if afraid that Zhang Qingrui would misunderstand, Luoqiu continued, Of course, you can introduce some basic books and information to me. I don't want to disturb you. Zhang Qingrui thought for a while and said, That's fine. But Luoqiu, as you said, antique appraisal is not something that can be mastered in a day or two. If you just want to do it for fun, I suggest you give up the idea. Luoqiu said seriously, I won't regret what I decide to do, and I won't give up halfway. Don't worry. Zhang Qingrui nodded. She quickly walked to the pear blossom wood book in her office. Not long after, she pulled out 3 thick books. They were Identification of Blue and White Porcelain, Origin of Blue and White Porcelain, and Appreciation of Qianlong-colored powder. There are many kinds of antiques, and there are many kinds of antique. So if you really want to learn, I suggest you focus on one of them first. Zhang Qingrui said, Porcelain is relatively common, and it's one of the easiest things to get. I suggest you start with porcelain first. Luoqiu nodded and put the 3 books into his backpack. Luochio didn't bring a backpack last time, but now, in Zhang Qingrui's opinion, it was obviously a backpack specially for books. This guy, don't tell me that this was his plan from the start? I'll give them back to you as soon as I finish reading them. Luochio thanked her. Zhang Qingrui shook her head. No, these books aren't precious. If you know how to buy them, you can buy them in many places. So it's okay to give them to you. She suddenly stared at Luochio. Take it as a thank you gift for someone who often borrows my class notes. Luochio thought this girl also had a petty and vengeful side, so he had to say, okay, I'll write it off. Zhang Qingrui didn't know whether to be angry or amused. She sneered and shook her head. I've given you the books. Do you have anything else to do? I have to deal with the shop, so I don't have much time to talk nonsense with you. But if you're interested, you can stay here and have a look. But remember, don't move your hands. Luochio shook his head. No, thanks. But since you welcome me here, I'll come here often. Zhang Qingrui didn't deny it. I'll walk you out. Before Zhang Qingrui walked Luochio to the lobby, she had to stop. The reason was that Qing Yun in a suit also came to the door. His voice was heard before he arrived. Miss Zhang. That's great, I can see you here. Qing Yun walked to Zhang Qingrui with a warm smile. Zhang Qingrui said indifferently, Why, are you the only one here? Qing Yun glanced at Luochio quickly and asked, Miss Zhang, may I ask who this is? He's my friend, Zhang Qingrui said, but I don't think he's interested in knowing you. What's the matter? Zhong Luochen asked you to come here? Qing Yun nodded. Miss Zhang, may I have a word with you? Zhang Qingrui frowned and looked at Luochio apologetically. Luochio smiled. It doesn't matter, you go ahead. By the way, thank you for your gift. I'll be careful and won't break them. When he took the 3 books, he found there were many notes in them. Obviously, Zhang Qingrui didn't just read them casually. Luochio didn't intend to take them back since she said she gave them to him. He planned to return them when he finished reading them. That's enough. You've said more than a year ago. Zhang Qingrui rolled her eyes at Luochio and then turned to Qing Yun. Come to my office. Qing Yun didn't dare to delay and followed Zhang Qingrui. But when he looked back, he found Luochio really left. He frowned. What's the relationship between this guy and Zhang Qingrui? They look very close. In the office, Zhang Qingrui directly asked Qing Yun's intention. Qing Yun considered. Miss Zhang, here's the thing. Second young master asked me to come over this time, mainly to pass a message to old Madame Zhang. He looked at Zhang Qingrui's face, continuing, Of course, I don't dare to disturb Mrs. Zhang, so I want to pass a message to her. What's the matter? Second young master said he'll visit Mrs. Zhang in person tomorrow, and an old friend of hers will come with him. Zhang Qingrui gave a start. The only people who could be considered as her grandmother's old friends seemed to be people from the capital. She nodded. I see, I'll tell her. Is there anything else? No. Qing Yun hurriedly said, I'm just passing a message, nothing else. Miss Zhang, I won't disturb you. Zhang Qingrui nodded. In fact, it would be more convenient to pass a message by phone. However, these large families all had this kind of rotten temperament. They had to specially send people over to show respect. Zhang Qingrui didn't like this method, but she knew her grandma would care about these details. Is that guy a bit different? A strange thought popped up in her messy mind. Zhang Qingrui gave a start, then chuckled. Why should I care about that guy? Even if she felt strange, this guy was weird. So, he was like Luochio. She shook her head, taking a deep breath, then grabbed a pen and started to work attentively. Qing Yun didn't leave immediately, but stopped at a parking lot behind Gu Yuzhai. Not long after, a receptionist of Gu Yuzhai looked around nervously. After making sure she wasn't seen by anyone, she walked quickly to the bushes. Little darling, did you miss me? Qing Yun took her into his arms and caressed her from head to toe. Bastard, didn't you go back to the capital? I thought you've eaten your fill and turned your back on me. But I'm back now. Oh, tell me, what do you want me to do this time? But to be honest, eldest miss really doesn't have any feelings for your young master. Every time you send flowers, you'll be sent away. No, no, let's not talk about this. Look at this black card in this photo. Do you have any impression of it? The receptionist looked at the photo carefully, saying after a while, Strange, I think I've seen it before, but I can't remember. It doesn't matter if you want to get up or not. Qing Yun smiled. There's something I really need your help with. Listen, if it works, I'll give you whatever you want. Really? The receptionist's eyes turned hot, but she hesitated. Wait, tell me what it is first. I won't do dangerous things. Qing Yun smiled. Baby, listen to me, you don't want to work all your life, right? Do you want to start a new life? And I promise you'll be fine. Then, okay. Qing Yun began to whisper something in her ear. After a while, Qing Yun sneered as he watched the receptionist leave. He muttered, What kind of woman is she? I'll be bored after playing with her a few more times. Stupid woman. As he spoke, he took out his phone and dialed Zhong Luoqin's number. Immediately, his expression changed. It's me, second young master. Yes, the matter has been settled. I've passed the message to Miss Zhang. Nothing happened, but... After a pause, Qing Yun said carefully, Do you remember the last time we came here? Miss Zhang was receiving a man and a woman? I saw it again today. But it was only that young man. They seemed to have been in the office for a while. I just happened to see Miss Zhang and that young man walking out, talking and laughing. They seemed to be quite close. Yin. Chapter 34. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second /Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Luo Qiu was reading one of the books, The Origin of the Blue and White Flower, when the bell rang. After putting on the clown mask, Luo Qiu came down from the second floor of the club. The guest was Yang Taizi. Of course, it was only Yang Taizi. Who are you? Yang Taizi was surprised to see Luo Qiu wearing a clown mask, but he also saw Yu Yi. From the figure, Yang Taizi easily guessed that this masked man was the young man from that day. Luo Qiu pointed at the round table, indicating that Yang Taizi could sit down and have a good talk. Is he wearing a mask to hide his identity? But I've seen Luo Qiu's real face. Yang Taizi couldn't help pondering over the meaning of his deceitful behavior. Is he warning me not to reveal my identity? Yang Taizi had always been very cautious, especially when dealing with such a mysterious and weird force. Therefore, Yang Taizi pretended that he didn't know Luo Qiu's real face, sitting down quietly. The old Taoist was good at meditation. When it was time to be quiet, he would be as still as a rock. However, Luo Qiu was thinking, if I knew it was Yang Taizi, I wouldn't have worn the mask. But Luo Qiu still took the initiative to ask, Guest, you want this pair of jade plates, right? In fact, if the white jade plates were really important to Yang Taizi, he should have arrived within 1 or 2 days. Yes. Yang Taizi nodded cautiously. Do you know the rules here? Luo Qiu suddenly asked. Yang Taizi said, I've heard about it. He was silent for a while, and then said resolutely, The value of the white jade token is too high. If it's a pair of complete white jade tokens, I'm afraid I can't afford it. So, I only want the high jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra hidden in the white jade token. Luo Qiu asked curiously, Taiyinzi's 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls are still here. He is your sect's ancestor after all. Are you planning to leave him behind? He's been expelled from the sect. Yang Taizi said seriously. He's no longer a disciple of my sect. It has nothing to do with me. While speaking, Yang Taizi reached into his chest and took out a brocade bag. A trace of unwillingness flashed in his eyes, but he still opened it resolutely and poured out a cyan jade. This piece of cyan warm jade can be used to nourish qi. Ordinary people wearing it can not only prolong their lifespan, but also exorcise dretches. It was good to be a Taoist. Regardless of whether they were rich or poor, they could always find 1 or 2 treasures. They weren't like ordinary people in the mortal world, who could only rely on their lifespan, souls, and so on. Using treasures as transaction fees was basically a method not commonly used by humans. Luaccio stretched out his hand and swept over the jade. After a while, he said, "This jade can only be exchanged for the scripture of one of the white jade plates." Yang Taizi gave a start and hurriedly said, "Look carefully. This cyan jade has been nourished for thousands of years. Now the society is seriously polluted, and the aura of heaven and earth has long been weakened. As long as you wear it regularly, you can safely complete this step of nourishing qi." Luaccio shook his head. "The scripture is a relic of your sect, isn't it? I listened to you reciting it that day, but I didn't know what you were talking about. I think this scripture should be missing in your sect. Love Go Little Say, Net, Quinn edition. From the fact that you only want this scripture, I guess I'm not wrong?" Luocchio said indifferently, "Since you don't know the complete version of the scripture, the complete version means more to you. Your cultivation may be stuck somewhere because of the incomplete scripture. It's easy to understand, isn't it significant to you?" Yang Taizi said helplessly, "This is indeed a place that eats people without spitting out the bones. Half a chapter it is. As for the other half, I'll buy it back as soon as possible." Luaccio put 2 jade plates on the round table. "Then you pick one." Yang Taizi was silent for a while and chose the left one. Obviously, both jade plates were in front of him. He could just pick them up and leave here directly. But Yang Taizi didn't dare to act rashly. Didn't he see that terrifying and powerful woman standing there that day? Although it was quiet, Yang Taizi didn't have the confidence to leave safely after grabbing the treasures. Yang Taizi took a deep breath, stretching out his finger and pointing at the jade plate on the left, murmuring something that no one knew what he was saying. Then the jade plate started to emit a faint light. Ancient golden characters were emerging from the white jade plate and surging into his eyes. Not long after, Yang Taizi reluctantly withdrew his finger when he saw no more words appeared on the white jade tablet. He smiled. "Fortunately, I only chose the first half. For this kind of transaction on the spot, there was no need for a separate contract like Zhong Luochen." After the successful transaction, Luaccio felt better, so he made another black card and gave it to Yang Taizi. Of course, the black card didn't have a mark on it. Yang Taizi read the first half of the scripture and felt better. He asked, "Excuse me, what are you going to do with the 3 souls and 7 spirits of Taiyinzi in the jade plate?" Luaccio said indifferently, "Do you want to buy it?" "No," Yang Taizi hurriedly said. "I have something else to do. I'll come back when I find the treasure." Sitting there, he felt uneasy and extremely uncomfortable. His steady Taoist heart kept swaying, and he didn't want to stay any longer. Seeing Yang Taizi leaving in a hurry, Luaccio took off his mask and looked at Yu Yi, asking, "Did the monks who came to the club look like this?" Yu Yi said, "After all, the legends in their circle have been demonized." "Really?" Luaccio nodded, and suddenly put the 2 jade plates together. Green smoke came out and took shape. It was Taiyinzi who was trapped in the jade plate. Taiyinzi's appearance this time wasn't as reckless as before. There was even a look of horror on his face. Luaccio said slowly, "From the beginning of the transaction, I let you see the whole process. Now, do you know what I do?" "Yes." Taiyinzi nodded. "This guy came from 500 years ago, and also knew the existence of the club. It seemed that the club's history could last for another 500 years. Thinking of this, Luaccio asked at the same time, "Do you want to get out of the jade plate?" Taiyinzi was trapped for 500 years, and this was his only wish. "What else can I give back?" Taiyinzi gave a bitter smile. "We don't accept money here. Even if it's money, I'm penniless now. I only have my 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls." "You want my 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls?" "I need some servants recently." Luaccio deliberated. "How about 500 years? You're trapped for 500 years, and then you serve me for 500 years, and then I'll set you free. 500 years for 500 years, but in fact, you can leave the jade plate so you can still make a profit. Taiyinzi said without thinking, Okay, I'll do it. Luochio was quite satisfied with this result. Then, he used the ability given to him by the club to release Taiyinzi from the jade plate, and reunited his 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. Finally, he was branded as a member of the club. Black Soul Envoy? Taiyinzi knew his identity after he regained his freedom. He couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. Finally, he said with a bitter smile, Black Soul Taiyinzi greets the master. Luochio smiled. You stay here for a few days, I'll call a Black Soul Envoy back. Yu Yi, call a big boss with good performance back to teach this newbie. Chapter 35. Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second/Little? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. The director acted so fast that Jiang Chu didn't know what to do. The patient had been sent to the ward of the hospital. She was an adorable little girl. Looking at the little girl lying on the sickbed with a pale face due to the torment of her illness, Jiang Chu felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. Don't look at me like this, please don't look at me like this. He kept thinking in his heart, almost begging. But on the surface, he could only stay calm and discuss the patient's condition with the director. The little girl's grandfather, the retired cadre of the Municipal Health Bureau, was also there. What retired old cadre? This was clearly the former bureau chief, and the current successor was also a direct disciple that he had brought up. Dr. Jiang, if there's no problem, I hope you can start the operation as soon as possible. I don't want my granddaughter to be tortured like this every day. Looking at the pleading in the old man's eyes, Jiang Chu guessed that he was just a helpless grandfather of the patient. Perhaps the operation would be fine? The operation could be completed within 5 to 6 hours. If it was controlled by medication, it should be able to support the trembling hands. Uncle Doctor, will you make Tingting better? Don't look at me like this, please don't. Jiang Chu gritted his teeth. Director, there's a lot of work and conditioning before the operation. I understand the patient's feelings, but please understand that it's a brain operation and we can't afford to be careless. Dinma nodded and said, I understand. But don't worry, I'll arrange what you need first. You don't need to worry about the conditioning. Tingting needs the operation for a long time, so we've been conditioning her body since a few months ago. We're ready for the operation at any time. Jiang Chu had to say, I understand. Tingting's grandfather grasped Jiang Chu's hands tightly. Dr. Jiang, I'm counting on you. Jiang Chu took a deep breath. I'll try my best. Not long after, Jiang Chu went back to his office, lying on the sofa and closing his eyes. However, the moment he closed his eyes, he seemed to see the little girl's eyes. This made him inexplicably agitated. Jiang Chu subconsciously took out the black card from his pocket and stared at it blankly. It was as if a voice rang out in his head saying, Come, come. Your wish will come true. Come. Suddenly, his phone rang. Jiang Chu shuddered. His hand trembled and the black card fell to the ground. Jiang Chu frowned and finally answered the call. It was a call from his ex-wife. They had divorced a long time ago, and their son was given to Jiang Chu. But Jiang Chu didn't disregard their old relationship. Every once in a while, he would let his son stay at his ex-wife's place for a few days. In addition, he was busy with work in the hospital, so this could relieve the pressure of his work. What's wrong? Why are you calling at this time? Jiang Chu, my son suddenly fainted. I called the ambulance and they are on their way to your hospital. What should I do? My heart is breaking when I see him in so much pain. Hearing his ex-wife's sobbing voice, Jiang Chu's expression changed. He rushed out of the office without thinking. Although he was a novice, he was different from the ordinary Black Soul envoys. When Luochio turned Taiyinzi into a Black Soul envoy, he kept his memory. Of course, it would take some time for him to keep his memory. But Luocio was willing to invest since he had already earned a lot from Zhong Luochen. Taiyinzi was a figure from 500 years ago. He should know more about the Eastern Taoist circle than Yu Yi. Although he didn't know about the 500 years in between, the things from 500 years ago could be considered as intangible assets. But it takes 15 days. So expensive. After complaining about the high price he had to pay for the altar, Luocio continued to read The Origin of the Blue and White Flower quietly. Not long after, Taiyinzi walked to Luocio respectfully and presented him with several pieces of A4 paper full of writing. "Master, this is the scripture I wrote down from memory." Luocio put down the antique book and started to read it. Well, he couldn't understand it at all. Taiyinzi was an old monster with hundreds of years of experience. He said fawningly, "Master, if you want to cultivate this wonderful scripture, I can give you some guidance. Although the spiritual energy in modern times is scarce, Master just got the green warm jade from Yang Taizi, so it won't be difficult for you to cultivate the first step." But Luocio shook his head. "No, I'm just curious. You can learn how to make white cards from Yu Yi." Taiyinzi could only leave in disappointment. Luocio glanced at the incomprehensible Eastern Taoist scripture and put it aside casually. As a modern youth who didn't seek death, he was more or less influenced by the utilitarianism of modern society. As the number of transactions increased, he would become more and more powerful. All kinds of abilities would be improved, and he could even achieve immortality. Why should he put the cart before the horse and cultivate this scripture? Luocio continued to read The Origin of Blue and White Flower. Until the shops outside were closed, he stretched himself and said, "Jiang Chu won't come today, right? Let's go home." Before leaving, Luocio stored the green warm jade in the warehouse and used up 30 days of his life. Then, he went home directly. Ren Xiling hadn't come back yet. It seemed that she had to do the final typesetting before printing, so she had to work overtime until late at night. Luocio pushed open Ren Xiling's door and walked to her bed. After raising the mattress, he put the green warm jade under the mattress. "Just take it as a birthday present half a year later?" Luocio muttered. "But isn't this woman a bit—" Looking at the messy clothes in the room, Luocio shook his head. He wondered if he should tidy up a bit, but decided against it. But the thought of tidying up the room appeared in his mind. All the clothes in the room floated in the air. Luocio was stunned and shuddered. The clothes floating in the air fell down one after another, and the red lace underwear that was originally in a moving state fell on his feet cooperatively. Luocio subconsciously wanted to kick it away. Unexpectedly, Ren Xiling's voice suddenly sounded. She sounded surprised and threatened. "Luocio? What are you doing here?" "Well, let's first review the scene." Because of the thought of tidying up the clothes, all the clothes were in motion. Their current position was actually much dirtier than before. Then, Luocio felt that it was a malicious intent from the universe. Some of the more subtle clothes fell around him. This scene appeared in front of Ren Xiling's eyes unreservedly. F*ck. This is so F*king embarrassing, yen PS1. I found that there are more recommendation votes than clicks. This is so embarrassing. Why does it look like Taobau's porn package? Chapter 36. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little? Say Network, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Luocio knew. In life, it was inevitable to encounter many embarrassing things, even close relatives. There would be times when it was particularly awkward. He was good at observation, so it was easy for him to see what Ren Xiling was thinking from her expression. Because of the excess of male hormones during puberty and the sexual deviation caused by exposure to a large amount of dirty information in society, and also because of the lack of maternal love since childhood, which led to the psychological bias of longing for older women and so on. But with Luocio's understanding of Ren Xiling, so many thoughts would only lead to one conclusion in the end. It's my fault. I actually didn't notice this. Renziling took a deep breath and said, "Let me be alone and think about it." Renziling suddenly closed the door of the room. The two of them were separated by a door like this, and time passed little by little. The door opened again, only to see Renziling with a serious face, looking at Luocio and said, "Luocio, I think we need to have a good talk. Listen, for men, this is not a shameful thing, we need to look at this problem optimistically." I knew it would be like this. Luocio had the urge to cover his face. Thousands of words finally converged into two words, and gently spit it out from his mouth. Sleep. What? Renziling only felt a strong wave of tiredness, making her eyelids so heavy that she couldn't open them. But in the blink of an eye, she had already leaned against the door, slowly slid to the ground, and fell asleep. Luocio stretched out his hand, and Renziling's body floated from the ground, and then floated back to the bed. He looked at Renziling, who had directly entered a state of deep sleep, with some annoyance. Shaking his head, the space around Luocio suddenly distorted slightly, and the next second, a doll with a beautiful face had already walked out of the distortion. "Master, why did you summon Yu Yi? Is there a problem?" Luocio said, "Yu Yi, you should be able to hypnotize her and make her forget some small fragments of her memories, right?" Yu Yi looked around the room and nodded, "Yes, it's fine. However, if humans suddenly have a blank memory, they will have doubts. It is best to use something to fill in the blank." Luocio thought for a while. "How about this? When I got home, I didn't see Luocio, but because I was too tired, I didn't even take a shower and fell asleep on my bed." "Understood." Yu Yi walked to Renziling's side, stretched out her hand and pressed on Renziling's forehead, then lowered her head and whispered something in her ear. Not long after, Yu Yi stood up. "Master, when she wakes up tomorrow, she will only remember what you just said." Luocio secretly breathed a sigh of relief. "Well, thank you for your hard work. You can go back first." After hearing the order, Yu Yi did not stay any longer. She walked in from where she left and disappeared. Luocio took a last look at Renziling, then casually sent the blanket flying and covered her body. Only then did he gently close the door and go back to his room. Love Go Shao Say W. Luocio was not too sleepy. He turned on the computer and logged into his Zhihu account. He found that there were already 2 replies to the questions he posted. The first one, "Are there only these few words? Is there a full picture or something like that? Because there are similar characters in the ancient text, it is difficult to determine what kind of text it is without more references." The second one, "It might be the Coptic language. It is considered a later product of the development of the ancient Egyptian language. However, I am not too sure. It is better to have more references." Luocio thought for a while, and cut out a few more words from the original photo. However, this time, he cut out a paragraph that was similar to a sentence. It was also the most complete and clear sentence that could be found in the photo. After he posted it, Luocio waited for a while. There was no reply, so he turned off the computer and lay on the bed with his phone. Thinking that it might be the Coptic language answer, he began to search on his phone. 3rd century AD. A large number of Greek documents copied in the Coptic language appeared, especially Christian scriptures. What the hell? Luocio suddenly felt sleepy. He looked and did not think too much. Then, he fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, he heard movement in the kitchen. He found Renziling making breakfast in the kitchen, full of energy. There was toast, fried eggs, and slices of ham. There was also a tomato salad to go with the nutrition balance. He probably hadn't eaten Renziling's breakfast for a long time, right? "Luocio? You're awake." Renziling walked out of the kitchen wearing an apron, holding 2 glasses of milk in her hands. "I don't know why, but I'm particularly energetic today. I woke up early on a whim. Try my cooking more often." "What kind of cooking skills do you need to make toast and fried eggs?" Renziling rolled her eyes and reached out to knock on Luocio's forehead. "Don't talk nonsense. Do you want to eat or not? Luoqiu shrugged and began to smear butter on the toast. Ren Xiling also chewed on the bread. At the same time, she looked at Luoqiu and asked, I say, boy, have you done anything bad recently? Why do I feel like you're coming back late? Don't you usually come back early, as if you deserve to be single for the rest of your life? Luoqiu had long been accustomed to this woman's bad words. He did not feel much and had already thought of an excuse. I've been working recently. If there's nothing, I should come back late at night. But didn't you say that you were going on a trip the last 2 times? Ren Xiling was obviously not a person who could be easily fooled. Luoqiu fooled her. Working. Ren Xiling's phone rang at this time. She had to stop talking. After picking up the phone, her expression changed slightly, and she hurriedly packed up. I'll keep this question to myself. I have something to do at the newspaper office, so I have to rush out. In fact, Luoqiu had always admired Ren Xiling's character of doing what she said. Just like now, she hurriedly rushed into the room to change her clothes, combed her hair while walking, and skipped to get the key. Like the wind, she rushed out of the door, then rushed back, grabbed the bread that Luoqiu was going to eat with butter, bit it in her mouth, and rushed out the door again. I'll talk to you about working later. When she closed the door again, she hurriedly reminded him. Luoqiu sighed. Finally, he could eat breakfast in peace. He bit the toast and planned to watch the morning news, but he saw a file on the TV cabinet. At this time, the phone rang. Hello, Luoqiu? You didn't see a file with a circle drawn on it? Put it on the TV cabinet. Very good. Come. My baby, listen. Can you help me send the file to my company? I'm rushing to a place, and I'm on the way. It's not convenient for me to come back. F***ck. Do you know how to drive? Accompanied by the ear-piercing roar of the horn, Ren Xiling continued, Good boy. After you send it, I'll introduce a girlfriend to you another day. Hello? Brat, you hung up on me? F***ck. Do you know how to drive? If you annoy me, you'll get it. Go to hell, old driver. Chapter 37. Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. Old Master Zhong came to Guyuzhai with Zhong Luoqin's help. Zhang Qingrui was waiting for them in the lobby, leading them to Zhang Lilanfang's room upstairs. Old Master Zhong and Zhang Lilanfang just looked at each other silently, without saying anything. After a while, Old Master Zhong said, I'm here to give it back to you, Luoqin. Hearing Old Master Zhong's order, Zhong Luoqin opened the brocade box. Zhang Lilanfang glanced at it and nodded. Zhang Qingrui took the brocade box from Zhong Luoqin. At this time, Zhang Lilanfang said, Qingrui, put it back to its original place. Remember, put it away well. Okay, Grandma. Zhang Qingrui answered softly. Zhang Lilanfang said again, Zhong Luoqin, I have something to talk to your grandpa alone. You go out too. Zhong Luoqin hesitated, but Old Master Zhong waved his hand. It's okay, you wait for me outside. Zhong Luoqin had to say, Miss Zhang, if you don't mind, I'll go with you to put it away, okay? Zhang Qingrui said indifferently, No need. Zhong Luoqin smiled and didn't insist. After the 2 young people went out, Old Master Zhong sighed. Lanfang, how have you been these years? Zhang Lilanfang waved her Chong Sam, but turned her head sideways, looking at the window instead of Old Master Zhong, saying indifferently, At least I'm better than you, an old guy who almost entered the coffin. Old Master Zhong smiled bitterly. I should have entered the coffin indeed. Thanks to you, if you didn't lend me the black card, I'm afraid I couldn't come to see you. Zhang Lilanfang said indifferently, It's just that your kid came to me with the jade lock. I think it's to settle some debts. Today I see you, not because I'm happy that you survived the crisis, but because I want to see what you've sold to keep your old life. I want to see how ugly you look. I'm happy to see it. Old Master Zhong sighed. Lanfang, do you still remember what happened that year? Zhang Lilanfang sneered. What? You want me to forget? Or is it that after so many years, an old woman like me should have become senile and forgotten? Old Zhong quickly said, That's not what I meant. We all know that we let you down back then. After that incident, we all felt guilty. We wanted to take good care of your Zhang family, but we didn't expect you to disappear overnight. Later, we asked around and found out that you were here. We wanted to come and find you, but we were afraid that you were still angry, so we waited until now. Then, old Zhong said in a sobbing tone, I don't have the face to see you. If it weren't for this trip to the gates of hell, sigh. Zhang Lilanfang sneered, Don't act pitiful in front of me. I'm too familiar with your tricks. Back then, all of you were just like this, talking about all kinds of reasons and forcing my husband to go to that place in the name of righteousness. For so many years, there had been no news of him. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. Good. Very good. You're shameless enough to see me. Old Zhong shook his head. No matter what you say, I'm here to see you. This time, I'm here for two things. Looking at Zhang Lilanfang's indifferent look, he had to continue. First, I want to thank you for lending me the black card. But you said it's to repay the kindness of that year. My life was saved, but I paid a great price. Let's just take it as the past. Secondly, I hope you can agree to marry your granddaughter to my Luochen. What? Zhang Lilanfang heard that and slapped the table angrily. I dare you to say that again. Old Zhong hurriedly said, Listen to me first. This marriage will only be beneficial to your granddaughter. There will be no harm in it. Listen, I plan to make Luochen the heir of all my properties. After your granddaughter marries me, she'll be the wife of the head of the Zhong family in a short time. You should know what I mean. If Xiaolu didn't sacrifice himself, there wouldn't be our families. I'll pay him back, no matter how much I owe him. Zhang Lilanfang sneered. That's a nice way to put it, but in the end, isn't it back to you? The child's surname will be Zhang. Old Zhong said faintly, If they get married, the first child's surname will be Zhang. No matter if it's a boy or a girl, he'll be the heir of all the properties of the Zhong family. You, Old Zhong suddenly stood up, holding the chair and kneeling in front of Zhang Lilanfang, saying with tears, Lanfang, we're sorry. Old Zhong is here, kowtowing to apologize to you. Dong dong dong. 3 quiet but very heavy kowtows. When Zhang Qingrui was walking through the corridor, she suddenly heard something breaking. She hurriedly turned the corner, asking in panic, Man, what's wrong with you? She saw a receptionist in Guyu Zhai fall down on the ground, with a broken teacup beside her. This receptionist was called Man. She had worked here for half a year, so Zhang Qingrui certainly knew her. Miss, I'm sorry, I was serving tea to old madam and the guests, but I accidentally. Man said with a frightened face, I'm sorry, I'll pay for the broken teacup. For what? Zhang Qingrui hurriedly helped her up. Look at you, your foot is bleeding because of the broken porcelain. It's a work injury, so we should pay for it. Miss, no need. Man hurriedly shook her head. I'm clumsy. I really don't need it. It's not a good idea for your foot to bleed. Zhang Qingrui said. Come to my office, I'll stop the bleeding for you first. I have some medicine. Miss, how can I trouble you? I'll do it myself. You're also injured, right? Can you walk? Zhang Qingrui said. Well, don't be polite with me, I'll help you. In the general manager's office, Zhang Qingrui was rummaging for something in another cabinet beside the bookcase. It's strange, I remember I put it here. Why is it gone? Man quickly glanced at Zhang Qingrui, and then looked at the brocade box she put on the tea table in a hurry. She gritted her teeth, opening it quickly. She took out a black card that was almost the same as the one in the brocade box, and turned it over. Man suppressed her fear and put away the black card, calming herself down. Miss, I don't think the blood is a problem, I can deal with it myself. Didn't old madam have a guest? Don't waste your time here. Found it, it's here. Zhang Qingrui turned around and hurriedly applied the medicine to Man. This medicine used to have a name, Jinchuang ointment. Don't you think it's similar to the costume dramas on TV? But it's very effective, and it won't leave a scar. Seeing the white powder sprinkled on the wound, the bleeding stopped instantly, and the wound began to cool down. Man couldn't help sighing, God! However, this is something that only a noble lady like you can use. As for us, we're just brutes. We'll just stick a tourniquet on it and be done with it. Zhang Qingrui carefully wiped Man's wound. No matter how brutes a girl is, she should take good care of herself. If you don't care about yourself, who will care about you? I seem to be fine, Man suddenly said. Zhang Qingrui said, how about this, you still sprained your foot. I'll give you half a day off to see a doctor. If your foot still hurts tomorrow, you can take another day off. Well, it's a work injury, so I'll give you a paid holiday. Don't worry. Thank you, Mississippi, Man hurriedly said. Zhang Qingrui smiled, and stood up to take the brocade box. After helping Man out, she went straight to the collection room. She opened the brocade box and took out the black card. She was stunned after taking a look at it, because it didn't seem to give her the same feeling as before. She was a little confused, but her grandma had confirmed it when it was sent here, so there shouldn't be any problem. Besides, her grandma had warned her not to touch it too much since she was a little girl. Though she was curious, she could more or less feel the strangeness of the black card, so she hurriedly put it back and locked it up. After a short while, she went back to Zhang Lilanfeng's room. Grandma, has the old master of the Zhong family left? Zhang Qingrui looked at Zhang Lilanfeng with surprise. Zhang Lilanfeng said, Did you put it back? Zhang Qingrui nodded. Yes, I put it back. Zhang Lilanfeng suddenly said, Kid, come here. Zhang Qingrui walked to Zhang Lilanfeng, who gently grasped her hand. If I let you marry Zhong Luochen, what will you do? Grandma, why suddenly? Zhang Qingrui's face changed slightly, but she was very calm because of her good upbringing. Answer me first, will you agree? Zhang Qingrui shook her head directly. Zhang Lilanfeng forced a smile. I know your answer. But what if I want you to marry him whether you agree or not? Grandma, are you kidding me? Do I look like I'm kidding? Zhang Lilanfeng said in a low voice. You keep asking me what happened that year. I'll tell you the truth now, then you'll understand why I made this decision. Luoqiu had been to Ren Xiling's workplace several times. This woman sometimes forgot something and asked him to send it here. But it was too troublesome to transfer to the bus. Luckily, it was in this city, which meant he could go anywhere he wanted. The club's transmission to the boss was usually done according to the boss's impression in the boss's memory. The deeper the impression was, the more accurate the transmission would be. Because he had been here several times, he still had some impression of Ren Xiling's office. Luoqiu took one step forward from home, then stepped into this office. Ren Xiling's office inherited the style of her home, which was dirty and messy. Luoqiu sighed, putting the file on the desk. Meanwhile, he saw a picture under the file. Curiosity was something that Luoqiu couldn't give up. He opened the file and took out the picture. Chapter 38. Geniuses Remember Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. In an old-fashioned tea-house, there was a group of people. Men and women of different ages, but they were all sitting on futons, looking at an old man sitting in front of them with piety, listening to every word that came out of the old man's mouth. My spirit is distressed and wants to speak. My heart is distressed and wants to express sorrow. Anger kills the foolish, jealousy kills the obsessed. Don't follow the schemes of the wicked, don't stand on the path of the sinner, don't sit on the seat of the scornful. Whoever likes to live, loves longevity, and enjoys good fortune, forbids the tongue from speaking evil words, and the lips from speaking deceitful words. The old man kept saying words that seemed to be able to warn the world. Everyone listened with fascination, and some even directly copied it down with a pen and paper. Listening to the old man's words, It was just something stolen from the teachings of a sect that believed in a man who was nailed to the cross, and it was directly stolen without any embellishment. This group of people actually took it seriously as an oracle of the spiritual God. A group of idiots. Rensselaer couldn't help but think to herself. She was also in this group of people, but she was sitting at the back. She quietly reached out and turned the miniature lens hidden in her collar, trying to take a picture of the old man in the front, who was called Spirit Master by these people. This was a rare opportunity for her to enter the organization, so she needed to seize this opportunity and expose this organization called Spiritual God's Truth. I came from nothingness, and I will also go from nothingness. Life is an illusion. The old man called Spirit Master in front suddenly opened his eyes, gently waved his hand and said, "All living things are suffering. Why not take off your clothes? Why not take off your clothes?" Everyone, including the Spirit Master, showed a solemn expression, stood up, and took off their clothes one by one, leaving nothing behind. Why not wash away our sins? Everyone began to hug each other. Rensselaer felt that something was wrong at first, but now she was really frightened. She figured that there was no way she could continue to stay here. She wanted to take advantage of the time when these people were looking ahead and not paying attention to her to sneak away. In any case, what they had taken was already shocking enough. At the same time, it was enough to make this organization illegal and need to be banned. But just as she quietly opened the door and slipped out of the corridor, two big men walked towards her. One of them sneered, "You want to leave just like that? The Spirit Master's sermon isn't over yet." Rensselaer took a step back and said with a smile, "I'm just an ordinary person. I don't understand these principles. I don't intend to be a carefree person anymore. If the two of you like it, you can continue. You should like the program inside. Then let's go together." Another big man smiled sinisterly. "I knew you had snuck in." Rensselaer was stunned and ran to the other side of the corridor without thinking. Unexpectedly, two big men immediately rushed out from this direction. At this time, four big men attacked her from the front and back. Rensselaer took a deep breath and said loudly, "You'd better not mess around. Do you think I would dare to come here without any preparation? Let me tell you, I've already contacted the police. F***CK. But the four big men didn't stop at all. At the same time, they flew towards Rensselaer. "Love go little say, W." Rensselaer nimbly dodged left and right, and even kicked one of the big men twice. "Tsk, I'm not easy to deal with." With that, Rensselaer didn't intend to tangle with the four big men. With one hand on the railing, she turned over and jumped down from the second floor of the tea house to the lobby. This tea house was the stronghold of this organization. It wasn't open at all, so no one saw such a move. Rensselaer jumped down and landed easily. Without thinking, she planned to rush out of the door. Unexpectedly, after running a few steps, Rensselaer felt her legs suddenly lose strength and fell directly to the ground. She looked up and saw that the psychic master had already walked out of the room. He was only wearing a pair of pants, revealing a strong body of muscles. He didn't look like an old man at all. The psychic master's face was frightening. His hands formed a strange handprint in front of his chest. At this time, he shouted with dissatisfaction, "Trash, you can't even catch a woman. You have to let me do it myself. Hurry up and catch her for me." "What's going on?" Rensselaer was stunned. She felt that her legs were completely numb and couldn't help but watch in horror as the four big men rushed directly from upstairs. She supported herself on the ground with both hands, trying to climb out, but her hands also became numb. Her whole body seemed to be filled with lead, and she couldn't move. "Ah, Master, this woman is much more beautiful than those idiot believers." A big man rubbed his fists and walked to Rensselaer's side. His face revealed a sinister expression, and he reached out to grab Rensselaer's chest. "Damn it! If I knew this would happen, I would have called the police." Rensselaer looked at this big man helplessly. But she was a strong person. Although she thought that she might be treated badly, she still thought about how to get away. The more it was like this, the more she needed to calm down. "Take your dirty hands away." Renziling suddenly stared at that big man. The big man was stunned and his hands stopped. But when he thought that he was scared by a woman who didn't have the ability to resist, he couldn't help but become angry. He grinned and said, "I will make you cry later." He didn't intend to stop his hands. That pair of full Saint-Espeaks would soon be played with at will. The big man's eyes even showed excitement. Unexpectedly, at this time, a sharp pain came from the big man's arm. It seemed to be hit by something fiercely. The big man even felt that the bones in his hands seemed to have been broken. That was a black long stick. No, it should be a black cane. The big man cried out in pain and quickly retreated 2 steps. But he saw that Renziling side, without knowing when, appeared out of thin air. It was a strange guy wearing a black costume, a clown mask, and a top hat. "You? Who are you?" Basically, different voices sounded at the same time. Renziling asked in surprise. The Soul Master on the side also frowned. "Call me. Call me clown." Wearing a clown mask and being a clown? Isn't this too casual? Of course, this was Renziling's thought. But it didn't matter what she thought. The Soul Master at this time snorted and said, "Humph, no matter you are a clown or something. Catch this idiot who wants to be a hero." The remaining 3 big men rushed toward the clown at the same time. Unexpectedly, the clown just casually waved the black cane in his hand, hitting one of them accurately. Moreover, the strength was abnormally terrifying. The cane just casually touched the big man's body and directly sent him flying. It didn't look like the kind of flying that sent him flying several meters away. In less than 10 seconds, the burly men were lying on the ground, wailing in pain. At this time, the clown looked at the Soul Master on the second-floor corridor. But the Soul Master's face slightly changed, secretly sweating. His hands quickly in front of his chest began to make hand seals again. Unexpectedly, the clown's black cane suddenly swept the tea table next to him. The black cane hit a white teacup. The teacup was like a wild horse that had escaped its reins. It shot out and accurately hit the Spirit Master's wrist bone. The whole small teacup was smashed into pieces, and the Soul Master even screamed. His wrist bone was directly broken. Under the clown mask, Luocio smiled with satisfaction. Although it was only the application of telekinesis or something like telekinesis, but this was very similar to a martial arts master. This style was very good. Yin. Chapter 39. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. When Luocio was in Renziling's office, he saw some pictures that she had secretly taken during this period of time. They were about this evil organization. When he saw these pictures, Luocio felt uneasy. This uneasy feeling reminded Luocio of Renziling's appearance when she rushed out of the house in the morning. He didn't care what time it was, so he directly called Renziling, but her phone was turned off. Luocio immediately returned to the club. Without any hesitation, he spent 15 minutes of his lifespan to buy the information of Renziling's location from the altar. At first, he was just worried. But this worry had already become a reality by the time it came. When he saw the burly man trying to violate Renziling with his obscene eyes, Luocio felt a kind of anger that had disappeared ever since his father passed away suddenly erupt in his chest. Things got out of hand. When the black cane came crashing down, it was basically Luocio venting all of his anger. He didn't use any of the club's owner's abilities. He only used the strength of his anger to break the man's bones. After this, Luocio finally calmed down a little. This woman had taken care of him for several years. What should have been her best years were all given to him. She had no regrets and even tried to find ways to open his tightly shut heart. Day after day, he racked his brains. A few years had passed. Luocio did not feel that the window of his heart had been opened again, but she had already moved in. Although they were only family-in-law, They had feelings that surpassed that of family. For Lucio, such a woman was as important as his own life. No one was allowed to move. It had nothing to do with whether he was the owner of the club. Even if he wasn't the boss of the club and was just an ordinary person, there was nothing much he could say. He would only think about risking his life. Lucio climbed up the stairs that led to the second floor. Step by step, he walked calmly. At the same time, the old man who had changed into a spirit master stood there motionlessly. His legs were trembling and his eyes were filled with fear. It wasn't that he wasn't willing to move. On the contrary, he wanted to move more than anyone else, but his body was completely unable to move. Even the air in his lungs seemed to have been sucked dry, making him feel suffocated. The spirit master couldn't help but be alarmed. He frantically tried to figure out who this clown-masked fellow who called himself a clown was. At this time, he began to recall some of the words that he had previously ignored. Those were the words of the teacher who had taught him these extraordinary methods. In this world, there are many strange people. You've only learned a little. Don't try to do evil. If you meet a real strange person with brilliant means, you'll only suffer. How could there be so many experts in the world? He had only managed to meet one after much difficulty. Who would have thought that he would really encounter it? At this time, Lucio had already walked in front of the spirit master. The spirit master hurriedly said in fear, Let me go. I was just possessed for a moment. I promise I won't commit any crimes in the future. I beg you. Lucio used his cane to push open the door of the next room. He took a look at the situation inside, and soon decided not to look anymore. A group of men and women were doing improper things inside. Moreover, they seemed to have lost their natural instincts and were doing it recklessly. This scene was already leaning towards the strange side. I didn't harm anyone. These people more or less have some darkness in their hearts. The spirit master said in a timid voice. Don't believe him. Don't know how much wealth this fellow has accumulated. There are several people here who are about to have their families ruined. Renziling shouted from afar. Lucio used his cane to lightly knock on the railing. Renziling's mouth instantly closed. She was frightened to find that she couldn't speak. She couldn't help but look at this clown in shock and fear. Well, although she was said to be the most important woman in his life, but sometimes Lucio really hoped that Renziling could shut up, so it was better to let her shut up. But the effect of her words had already appeared. The spirit master became more frightened at this time. His face was full of uneasiness. He wanted to say something but stopped. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth and said something wrong, it would bring about bad consequences. Lucio said indifferently at this time, What about these people inside has nothing to do with me. What you said is not wrong. If the people inside are smart, they naturally won't be so easily bewitched. They only have themselves to blame and can't blame others. Hearing this, the spirit master hurriedly said, I will let them return to normal. From now on, I promise I won't do it again. Lucio said, You want me to let you go? The spirit master hurriedly nodded. Lucio said indifferently, Then what are you going to use to trade? Let me let you go. This is what you want, right? Money. I will give you all the money. The spirit master said without thinking. Lucio shook his head and said, Money is useless to me. To be honest, although these people who you harmed are asking for it, I don't intend to do anything for them. But I don't like it when I see this, so I have the intention to kill you. I will want to kill you. In other words, you want to buy your life. What do you think you can give me that is worth your life? I don't know. The spirit master said in horror, Please say. No matter what it is, I will give it to you. Lucio didn't say much. He tapped the spirit master's forehead with his black cane and said, Indeed, bad people can live for 1,000 years. It seems that it's true. You still have 60 years to live. But I think that people like you can live for another 2 or 3 years is the limit. 58 years, you can use your 58 years to buy me not to kill you. Of course, you can also choose not to buy it. I won't force you. Use his life to buy his life? The spirit master didn't think so. What kind of logic was this? This life could be exchanged like this? Was there something wrong with this guy's brain? But no matter what, if he could talk, he wasn't willing to die in this place. He had heard his teacher say that the people with special abilities walking in this world were all eccentric people with unfathomable thoughts. The spirit master took a deep breath and probed, "If I sell, will you really let me go?" "Yes," Luochu said indifferently, "as long as you sell, I won't lie." The spirit master clenched his teeth and said, "You are an expert outside of this world. I believe that you won't cheat a small person like me. You also disdain to cheat a small person like me. But how do you want to sell it? Could it be that he wants me to live for another 3 or 5 years before coming to kill me?" The spirit master couldn't help but think in this direction. In short, he had to survive this disaster first. After 3 or 5 years, he didn't believe that this strange guy could still find him. Luochu said, "You only need to agree to sell. Sell or not sell." "I'll sell." Luochu suddenly smiled and said, "Thank you for your patronage, respected guest. I won't kill you now." The spirit master suddenly felt his body relax. His hands and feet could move freely. But he didn't dare to be rash and quickly said, "Thank you. Thank you, master, I promise that I won't do it again." As if, "Let me escape, I'll be free." But he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Although his body was free, a powerless feeling suddenly spread through his whole body. The spirit master looked at his hands in horror. They were actually starting to shrivel up. At this time, even the bulging muscles on his body were starting to shrink. His body had become crooked, and his originally white hair and youthful face was now covered in wrinkles. Even his teeth had begun to fall out at this time, leaving only a few hanging on his gums. "You? What did you do to me?" The spirit master was shocked and angry. He looked at his body's changes in disbelief. Luochu said indifferently, "The process of life is generally irreversible. You don't have 58 years of life. What's so strange about the remaining 2 years of life?" You lied to me." The spirit master was very angry. He didn't even think about it and rushed toward Luochu. But he was already on the verge of death. Not to mention Luochu, the club's boss, even an ordinary adult could push him to the ground with a light push. The spirit master's knee was hit by the black cane. His whole body fell to the ground. He struggled but couldn't get up. How did he become like this? Ren Xiling actually climbed up at this time. It was probably because the method he used on Ren Xiling lost its effect when he was collecting the spirit master's lifespan. As for Luochu telling her to shut up, she just shut up for a while. He couldn't bear to be too strict with this woman. Luochu stretched out his black cane and slid it on the spirit master's face. The black cane shaved off the spirit master's beard. This guy is not old at all. Probably because he pretended to be an old man and showed his strong muscles. It was more deceptive. But now Ren Xiling played the special role of a reporter. Luochu still told Ren Xiling to shut up. "I'm leaving. You take care of this." Luochu said indifferently, "These people can't hurt you." He knocked his cane on the floor, and the men and women who were having S*X in the room instantly fell to the ground and fainted. The 4 men downstairs were the same. "I left you 2 years, not because I think you are qualified to live for 2 more years." Luochu finally looked at the spirit master. Before he fainted, he said indifferently, "It's because I think you need to spend at least the remaining 2 years to repent for what you have done. Well, it should be in prison or something." The spirit master then fainted with a face full of unwillingness. Luochu finally looked at Ren Xiling. "It's better not to tell others that you've seen me. It's easy for me to know your background. Naturally, it's easy for me to know who you are and what important people you have. After saying something similar to a warning, Luocio calmly walked down the stairs. He opened the door of the tea-house and walked out. At this time, Ren Xiling suddenly shuddered and felt as if she had finally come back to life. Holy sh*t. Did I really meet a celestial being? Clown immortal? What is this? Yen 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 yen. Chapter 40. A genius remembers love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Several police cars were parked there, as well as 3 escort vans. There were already warning fences all around, and 2 policemen were standing guard at the entrance with their hands behind their back. This was something that happened several hours later. This group of reporters is just like flies. Officer Ma looked at the group of reporters who were blocked outside the door and kept pressing the shutters. He couldn't help but frown. These guys were so well informed that they sometimes even surpassed the police. It was simply unbelievable. According to what you said, I am also a type of fly. A dissatisfied voice suddenly sounded behind Officer Ma. Officer Ma turned around with a serious expression. Because of the scar on his face that he had left on a case in his early years, his face suddenly looked like a bitter gourd. He looked at the person who had said those words with a sarcastic tone. A very beautiful woman. That's not what I meant, sister-in-law. Tisk. Ren Xiling clicked her tongue. Officer Ma could only smile awkwardly. The people who worked for Officer Ma were basically rubbing their eyes. They looked at the Officer Ma, who was famous for his hot temper, in disbelief. It was really the biggest news of the year. Could it be that Officer Ma had taken a fancy to this beauty? What nonsense are you thinking? Didn't you hear Officer Ma call her sister-in-law? She was the widow of one of the older brothers who had taken care of Officer Ma. Officer Ma treats her with the same respect as a teacher's wife. Widow? Holy shit. At this age? Don't meddle in things that are none of your business. Anyway, if you need to give a statement later, you better be polite. Otherwise, you'll suffer when you get back to the police station. If you offended Officer Ma, he wouldn't care about it. At most, he would argue with you. If you offend this woman, she won't hold it against you, but Officer Ma promises to fight you to the death. On the other side, Officer Ma pulled Ren Xiling to the side and asked nervously, Sister-in-law, how could you be so bold as to sneak into such a terrifying place alone? It's not that I want to nag at you, but can you not work so hard like before? If something were to happen to you, how would I have the face to see Big Brother Luocio? Alright, cut the crap, Ren Xiling said directly. I've recorded the whole process of these guys preaching. I'll give you a copy of it later as evidence. Officer Ma quickly nodded and said, Yes, sister-in-law. He then asked hesitantly, Sister-in-law, were you the one who knocked down these people? Ren Xiling remembered what the clown had said, so she said vaguely, What? You don't believe in my skills? Officer Ma quickly shook his head and said, That's not what I meant, but I have to write this report. Ren Xiling looked at Officer Ma like he was an idiot and said impatiently, After so many years, your brain still doesn't work well, right? Can't you say that this group of people had internal strife because they couldn't split the loot evenly? Then, you received a tip-off and immediately led a team to arrest them? I don't know anything. I just came here to interview. Officer Ma beamed with joy and said, Sister-in-law, you're indeed a pen-grabber. Your brain works well. Don't flatter me. Ren Xiling waved her hand and suddenly thought of something and said in a low voice, But this group of people saw me, so I don't know if they have any accomplices. I'm fine, but you'd better be careful. I don't want anything to happen to Luocio. Officer Ma said in a low voice, Sister-in-law, don't worry. Whoever dares to touch Big Brother's child, I'll be the first to fight him to death. Not only me, but a group of brothers who followed Big Brother will never let him go. Ren Xiling nodded and finally said, By the way, that old man is a bit strange. You'd better let your subordinates watch him closely. Well, it's best to tie his hands. Officer Ma was stunned, but still nodded. Sister-in-law, I'll ask someone to send you back? No, I have to go back to the newspaper office later. This is big news. Renziling just sat in her car and put on the seatbelt, but Officer Ma chased after her. Sister-in-law, wait. Officer Ma stopped Renziling and said shyly, "It's like this, there's something I want to ask you for help with." Renziling frowned and said, "What's wrong?" Officer Ma said quietly, "It's like this, recently we are investigating a transnational crime case. I know you have a lot of connections, so I want to ask you for help to investigate a person. You also know that some things are not convenient for us to do openly." Renziling thought for a while and said, "Well, give me the person's information." Officer Ma said solemnly at this time, "But sister-in-law, you can investigate, but don't do it yourself like this time, okay? Anyway, you just do the business of buying and selling information. Promise me, don't put yourself in danger. Otherwise, I'd rather not ask for your help." Renziling sighed, stared at Officer Ma and scolded, "You are just like my mother." Officer Ma said with a bitter face, "No, no, no, you are my mother. My biological mother. My great-aunt, please don't do dangerous things anymore. F*CKU, I don't have a son as old as you." Renziling wrinkled her nose and said, "I only have one son, and he is much more handsome than you. Of course. After all, he is Brother Luo's son, how can he not be handsome?" Renziling was happy to hear this, and stepped on the gas pedal, speeding away. Officer Ma shouted helplessly, "Sister-in-law, slow down. There are a lot of fines this month. I can't handle it." After returning to the hotel, Qing Yun reported some things to Zhong Luochen, and excused himself to leave. But in fact, after walking around outside, he went to a nearby coffee shop to meet with the third miss of the Zhong family. "This is that black card?" The third miss of the Zhong family took the black card from Qing Yun's hand, and looked at it carefully. "Yes. I specially asked someone to forge one. The size should be about the same, after all, it is calculated according to the size of the second young master's palm." The third miss of the Zhong family nodded. "Well, you go back first, don't let the second brother suspect." After a pause, the third miss of the Zhong family added, "There will be enough money to your account." Qing Yun immediately beamed with joy. "Thank you, third miss. Then I will go back now." "Well, that guy." The third miss of the Zhong family looked at the direction that surprised Qing Yun, and found that it was just an ordinary-looking young man, who was ordering something at the front desk. "Who is that?" the third miss of the Zhong family asked. Qing Yun said, "I don't know, but he might be someone that Miss Zhang knows, and they seem to be very close." The third miss of the Zhong family suddenly said, "That Miss Zhang doesn't seem to like my second brother very much, right?" Qing Yun said, "She is quite indifferent. As for whether she likes him or not, it's hard to say. After all, there are many ways to move a woman as long as you can find the right one." The third miss of the Zhong family suddenly smiled. "Qing Yun, it seems that you know women very well." Qing Yun hurriedly said, "They are just ordinary women. Like you, third miss, I dare not to say that I know you well." The third miss of the Zhong family said indifferently, "Go, find out the details of this guy, maybe it will be useful." Qing Yun nodded, and at this time, lowered his head and left from the door. The third miss of the Zhong family began to carefully observe the black card in her hand. There was a golden mark on it. When she looked at it, she felt that she couldn't take her eyes off it. She couldn't help being absent-minded. Luochio, who had just finished buying things from the counter, leisurely walked past the glass window. It could be considered as passing by. In fact, the shopping street was not far away. After leaving the tea-house, Luochio didn't go far, but hid in the distance. He didn't leave until he saw Renziling leave safely. Although he saw Officer Ma, he knew Officer Ma, his father's brother. It was just inappropriate to greet him. Thinking that it was past lunchtime, there was no need to bother Yu Yi, so he simply bought something to eat in a nearby coffee shop. This coffee shop's cake was actually quite famous in the neighborhood. After returning to the club, Luochu changed into the club owner's attire, sitting behind the counter. He put aside the cake he bought from the coffee shop and the black tea Yu Yi made for him. Luochu turned on the gramophone and played some music, while reading The Origin of Blue and White Porcelain. In this way, he could sit for half a day.